Please rise and join us in the pledge. Actually, I'm pretty happy with it. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, Moines County Board of Supervisors, September 15th, 2021. September 21st, 2021. Got the wrong agenda. I thought that sounded familiar. Are there any changes to the tentative agenda? We have an agenda. Meet with department heads, elected officials. Terry Johnson, Des Moines County Auditor.
Good morning. Last night we were here till 5 o'clock because that was the last day to receive absentee request forms for absentee ballots to be mailed, but in-person absentee voting will continue through Monday, October the 4th to 5 p.m. for anybody that wants to vote for the City of Burlington primary election. They can vote absentee in person. Tonight, we have to stay open because tonight is the withdrawal and objection deadline for the city school elections. So we've received all the candidate papers, but if anybody decides that they want to pull out and not have their name on the ballot, they have until 5 p.m. tonight for that. We've got a pretty good list for some of the schools and stuff, so we had quite a few candidates that were turned in. September the 29th is...
What you said withdrawal and object, what's the object part of that?
if somebody objects to a candidate, we've never had anybody
Oh,
make
really?
an objection, but if somebody wanted to object and say, you know, hey, they don't live in the city or whatever, or disagree for some reason, they can object. But we've never had anybody do that. The withdrawal, if they want their name taken off of the ballot or the list, then they have till 5 p.m. tonight for that. And that's all for the city school election in November, and for the October city primary, like I said, the 29th, we're doing equipment testing. October the 4th is the last day to in-person absentee vote. And of course, the election is on October the 5th from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So, and we're just working on preparing for the city primary, and now at the same time working on the city school election, so busy.
Thanks, Terry. Lisa Schaefer, Des Moines County Attorney.
Just staying busy.
See
The
you.
old with the new.
See you have one less customer in jail now.
One. Problem is we got like 10 new ones, so.
He'd been a regular for some time.
Yes.
Colin Durst, IT.
It's keeping busy like always, nothing new to report.
Kevin Glendenning, Des Moines County Sheriff.
Hi, good morning. No major news from the sheriff's office today.
Okay. Trent Hangelwig, I'm assuming you're here to walk us through the resolution on the driveway.
Correct.
If we have any questions.
Yes.
Zach James, Southeast Iowa Regional Planning.
Good
Land
morning.
use.
Good morning. Got a couple items on the agenda today, and then ordinance updates that we've been working on. Floodplain ordinance, we'll have the first reading next week on that, so be ready for that one. And then subdivision and zoning ordinances we're working on a planning and zoning commission meeting right now. So those will be working their way hopefully to you here in the next few weeks, as well as airport approach regulations. So all these ordinance updates we've been working on are all wrapping up, and hopefully we'll be in front of you here in the next few weeks. We hope.
There's nothing any board looks forward to more than addressing regulations for the fourth time.
We're final time.
Final time.
Yeah.
I forgot that word, final
time
Final
for a
time.
long time,
Yes,
hopefully. Yeah.
yes. Thanks, Zach.
Yeah, well,
Krista Pocono, Public Health.
Good morning. We continue to be busy. Our 7-day rate has not changed. It'll change tomorrow. We've had 15% with 214 cases. Again, that should be updated tomorrow. Our vaccination rate for 18 and older is 54.3% for the county, and for starting at 12 and older, it's 51.4%. We are hosting a drive-through again today at Southeastern Community College from 12 to 6. No appointments necessary. We'll be giving the Pfizer, the Johnson & Johnson, and the Moderna. And again, next Friday, October 1st, 12 to 6 at Southeastern Community College. Last week, we had a Board of Health meeting. They discussed the current COVID cases. And we also discussed just the progress of the public health building and that, you know, we're moving forward with that. And also some changes to our electronic medical records for our home health department. Our current provider is no longer going to be providing that service, so we discussed different options for that, as well as the investigation for the potential near drowning earlier at Dankler Park. That investigation has been submitted to the state, and we're waiting for their reports back.
Thank you, Krista.
Thank you.
Rodney Boisner, maintenance.
Good morning. We finally got the jail generator all switched over and finished up yesterday afternoon, so finally got that project buttoned up. And other than that, just got personnel action today. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. Natalie Stefner, Des Moines County Recorder.
Good morning, just business as usual in the recorder's office. Nothing new to report.
Thank you, Natalie. Chris Lee, Conservation.
Good morning. Last week I was up at the Iowa County Conservation Systems annual fall conference at Story County. Pretty neat stuff they got going up there. So it's really good to see. And other than that, we just have a work session today, working on figuring out, you know, how to fund different things. We got the master plan for Big Hollow and you know, big dreams for a lot of our parks. And it's neat talking to other county conservation professionals because it's, you know, it's across the state, across the board. They've seen just massive increases in park visitation and campsite visitation. You know, camper sales have been through the roof, and you know, trails, everything have just been wildly popular thanks to the pandemic. And so it's kind of neat to see just the way different counties have adapted and their plans for using different stuff. And then kind of on a very sad note, in Lee County, so our colleagues down in Lee County Conservation, they lost a staff member weekend before last. Their wildlife technician and park ranger, Dustin Johnson, he passed away unexpectedly from an accident. He was 46. And so our hearts go out to the team down there at Lee County Conservation and the Sheriff's Department down there, and the family and friends of him. He was a highly respected, very loved individual. Did a lot of really great things for conservation, so that's been tough.
Just beside my wife's sister and her husband, they live in Tampa, and they've been on a 3-month RV tour. They went through Texas and Arizona and California to Oregon to Washington and Wyoming. Anyway, they've been in a couple places in Iowa for a while, and anyway, they've been out at Big Hollow since Thursday night, I believe, or whatever it was. A lot of compliments. They really, really like it. They said that's one of the nicest places they've stayed. They
Great, it's good to hear.
really have liked it.
Yeah, we're off proud of that place.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Brian Carter, County Engineer.
Good morning. Flood Bottom Road's making progress. Should pour some concrete this week, so that's a good way to get things moving finally. It's still a little ways away. Concrete this week, some concrete next week, and then of course we got to get some backfill and some stuff done before it's open to full traffic. But they made good progress, and that is good headway. So a couple other projects still haven't gotten. Geode hasn't started yet. Still don't have anything set on that. And Stone and Pleasant Grove is not started yet. So as I have more information, I'll give you guys updates on that, but I don't have that for today at this point. So otherwise, nice to get some moisture actually. We blade guys will be out blading, and that's the best case scenario, as dry as we've been. And we are still pinching on gravel roads, just so you know. We're I'd say over half done now. I was able to get Shane out last week and kind of show him the process a little bit and give him a feel for it. And guys are making headway. So we'll just keep on keeping on, but we're definitely, I'd say, past half and wrap that up. So
How much rain did we get last night? Anybody know?
anywhere from 1.5 to 3 some, depending on where you're at in the county.
Have to get in my basement.
I'd say further south you went, the heavier it was. So.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Janelle Malloy-Longquist, the Wayne County Treasurer.
Good morning. We're just keeping busy, of course, with property tax collection. Just a reminder, next Thursday, September 30th, is the last day for payment of the first half taxes, either in the office up until 4:30, drop box, by mail, as long as it's postmarked, September 30th or before, and online. So starting Friday at 8 a.m., October 1st, there will be 1.5% interest. So just a reminder, get it in by next Thursday.
So everybody's well aware of it. That's nothing the board can waive.
Correct.
All your entreaties are in vain.
Been tried before.
It's been tried many times, but the Code of Iowa is clear on that. Doug Irvine, Jail Administrator.
Good morning. I was just seeing if item D, my tax suspension request was gonna go through.
That took care of that.
Yeah, took care of that, but everything's going good. As Rodney said, that the generator went in without any hitches at all on our part internally, so I don't know if they had any problems with the installation process, but everything's going good there. Got 79 with 8 out of county, kind of holding about there, somewhere in the 70s, so. Other than that, everything's moving along as norm. Lisa might have miscounted a little bit on her 10 new ones, but she's being optimistic.
Thanks, Doug. Angie Vaughn, Safety.
Good morning. Keeping busy, but not really anything to report, so.
No falls, nobody got hurt or anything?
Well, do we want to have that conversation?
I hope not.
I can send you a video on people that fall.
Yeah,
We'll talk about it
exactly.
later.
Ken Heinman, Community Services.
Good morning. It's great to be back. I'd just like to thank my staff, especially Patty Brooks, who really covered a lot of things in the office the 9 days I was out ill, and I just know, I come back and I see the lawn all mowed and everything. I know Rodney and his guys have been working hard and everything, and I just appreciate all the people that pick up when things happen, so appreciate that. Good to be back.
Good to
Welcome
have
back,
you
Ken.
Thanks.
We got anybody online?
One column user, but I believe that's Mike. So.
Okay. Correspondence. I have none.
None?
Proceed to discussion and vote. We have accounts payable in the amount of $629,375.75.
Move to approve.
Second?
Terry?
Jim Carrey,
Yeah.
Shane Campbell,
Yes.
Tom Roker.
Yes. Payroll claims reimbursements in the amount of $745.75.
Move to approve.
Second?
Terry?
Shane Campbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yeah.
Tom Roker.
Yes. We have a approval of a contract for 235th Street grading. I'm gonna guess that's Mr. Carter.
Yeah, this is the dirt road upgrade that we discussed that went through all sorts of processes that we have. I think going forward in the next 6 months, whenever time allows, we're gonna work on that resolution and upgrade that policy a little bit. This is the very first time this has gone through this process, so we've learned some stuff, and but either way, we did take bids. They came in at 40,000. I guess I gave the only document away, but it came in at 40,000, which was over our estimate, and we only had one bidder, and I think in the current market, it came in at $40,688.10. The estimate was $31,926. In the current market, I think that's a good bid. I wasn't shocked at only one bid, but I do believe it's a competitive bid. Just things have gone up. I mean, it's just every time you turn around, that's the conversation that's being held in the transportation sector. So either way, we have talked to them and we're prepared to, I'd recommend signing the contract and moving forward. It did actually, as a reminder, this is the portion that the petitioner has to file, has to pay for a portion of it. They did have to deposit another amount. The portion of the project that went up is the part that they have to pay for a portion of half of it, I want to say. So their portion of it almost doubled as part of this project. So roughly they'll end up paying about 25% of this project from what it was originally. So and that is deposited. I wanted to let you know that also. So we are ready to proceed on this.
Move to approve that.
Second. Terry?
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have a tax suspension request, parcel 1035-278-023. This is a tax suspension request from the Department of Human Services. If someone is adjudged unable of paying those taxes, the taxes are suspended. They aren't forgiven. Those taxes are due whenever that individual can pay those taxes or whenever the transfer is made. So anyway, and this is a letter from the Treasurer's Office. The homeowner of the above referenced parcel is requesting a suspension delay of the real estate taxes pursuant to Iowa Code Section 427.9. Per letter from the Department of Human Services dated September 2nd, it appears he qualifies for the property tax suspension. The letter is on file at the Treasurer's Office. What's your wishes, gentlemen?
I move to approve.
Okay. That's a pretty tepid sentence. Second. Terry?
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. And we have an appointment to the Civil Service Commission. To appoint a new commissioner to the Sheriff's Office Civil Service Commission, Jonah Greer has expressed his willingness to serve on the commission. Jonah has served as a trooper and a DCI agent in his 22 years with the Iowa Department of Public Safety and would be a great option for the commission. The code requires not more than 2 members of the commission be of the same political party, and with Terry's assistance, we confirm that this is not an issue. Thank you, Kevin Glendenning, Sheriff. And I know this is an appointment Kevin's been looking to fill for sure.
So the Civil Service Commission is to ensure that we meet professional standards when we do promotions and selections for hire, and with Jonah's position in law enforcement, knowing those professional standards, history with doing interviews and the standards that are needed in law enforcement, I think he'll do a great job.
Thank you, Kevin. Move to approve.
Second.
Terry?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes.
You got a good man there. I know Jonah personally, but he could learn how to play euchre a little better.
Sure Kevin will pass that along.
Thanks, man.
I appreciate his willingness. We ask a lot of that commission. They do our interviews for anybody selected for hire and then for promotions, and they devote a lot of time, and it's a thankless position, but we have some really good folks on it, so we appreciate it.
appreciate his willingness to serve. Okay, we have a resolution authorizing Des Moines County to financially support the Great River Housing Trust Fund for fiscal year 2023. I'm guessing that's Mr. James.
Yeah, this resolution, I think we've been here for the last probably almost 10 years, made the same request. This would probably normally be done during budget time, but there's a grant due in October every year, so that's why we bring it up here in September to document that we have local match for the grant that we submit to IFA. So this is a part of the matching funds that go to assist that grant, and it helps us fund the trust fund, which allows, the primary thing is for residents to apply and do basic maintenance for their home, essential repairs, siding, windows, roof, furnace, but we have some other programs too that we do with that, with some other story loans or grants and things of that nature too. So this is a request for matching funds, but for your 2023 budget. And just, like I said, it helps document the match for our grant program. We make a request to all of the counties as well, so.
And you said this has been an annual ask as well.
Yeah, I think it's been almost 10 years now, 9-10 years, I think we've made this request. I will say this is a slight increase. I think we've been at $10,000 every other year, so it's 12.5 this year. We're just doing a lot more projects, and our grant amount's is gonna be a little bit higher, so that's why we made a slight increase in the request.
They've even convinced me that they do some good things with this, so.
They've convinced
They've
you.
been convinced, Tom.
Well, heck, man.
Thanks,
That
Tom.
was some good convincing. I'm proud of you, Batman.
That takes a lot.
Baffled, you know.
We need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Terry?
Shannon Campbell,
Yeah.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have a resolution concerning the shared driveway in the John and Lillian Roth estate.
My name's Shane. You know, the
Oh,
level
I
of
didn't
disrespect
even,
down
I
here.
didn't.
Now we got a typo or something.
Resolution number 2021-042, Thomas L. Broker, chairperson, Jim Carey, attest, Robert W. Beck.
Didn't even notice.
Brad,
Do you want, do you?
We can,
How
go ahead and approve.
many times I gotta keep
We'll
telling
get
everybody,
all or
I'm
not.
not Bob. We've already, sorry, I can't be Bob. We've already approved
We'll
it.
print out another one after the
Yeah,
meeting.
well,
We will print out another one after the
I'll
meeting.
print out a
I
code.
think they're all rubber.
So, I'd write your name in, but I'd probably misspell it.
I know you
Here, hand
Because you
those
still
over,
want me
hand
to
those
be
over to
Bob.
me.
That's easy.
I didn't do that,
I
Shane.
didn't
It's
notice
somebody
that.
else pulling tracks.
Is there a show? What about
We're
Bob?
gonna take-
Bob will be
Yes.
Norris, I believe.
Yes,
He's watching.
that's the only Norris.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Okay,
I'm
we
sorry,
have,
Shane.
I can't even remember what the hell I was.
I threw him off there with the Bob.
Got the, resolution concerning the shared driveway in John and Lillian Roth Estate subdivision. We've had at least 2 work sessions on this.
We have.
And, this is to, fix a mistake of years ago that, so it'll work going forward. Does anybody, remember the, work sessions?
Yep.
We don't have any questions for Trent? Okay. Since it does involve subdivision, I will read this. Whereas the Des Moines County Board of Supervisors approved and adopted a resolution approving the final plat of the John and Lillian Roth Estate subdivision on December 5th, 2006, whereas the approval of this subdivision plat included a condition that Article 5, Section 2.7 of the subdivision ordinance be waived. However, any future development of the property for residential, commercial, or industrial purposes requires conformance to roadway improvement statutes, and whereas lots 1, 4, and 5 of the John and Lillian Roth Estate subdivision were subsequently developed for single-family residential dwellings, but the existing shared driveway serving lots 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 was never upgraded to comply with the standards of Article 5, Section 2.7 of the subdivision ordinance. And whereas the lack of compliance was discovered by the county staff in 2019 after zoning permits had been issued for lots 4 and 5, and the homes had each been fully constructed and occupied. And whereas the Board of Supervisors intends to ensure that no further home construction in this subdivision is undertaken until the shared driveway is upgraded to the minimum standards of the subdivision ordinance. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors hereby reaffirms the resolution approved on December 5th, 2006, with the stipulation that no zoning permits shall be issued for lots 6, 7, or 8 of the John and Lillian Roth Estate subdivision until the shared driveway is upgraded to the minimum standards of the Des Moines County subdivision ordinance. That's it.
I move to approve.
I second. Thanks, Trent, for the hard work you did on that.
Yeah, thanks, Brad.
Terry.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes.
I'd like to know how hard Trent worked on that. I'd just like to get some clarification from a lawyerly perspective. We'll talk about it later, Trent.
Make sure we didn't put Bob on that one too.
Well, it's on there.
That's what I
It's
was.
on there.
That's all
There's a cloud of Bob.
As soon as I read it, because Jared did the original on both, so I was like, I'm sure it's gonna be the same.
I still go into meetings and they say, we're expecting Bob. I still get that. It's gonna take a while.
But do they look cheered up? Is that the question?
You want me to answer that? The camera's on.
I wasn't gonna tell him anyway. Okay, we have personnel actions, one for maintenance. We have Gage Johnson, lead maintenance, an 18-month step increase. Previous rate was $34,670.08. The new rate is $35,903.38.
Move approved.
Second.
Terry?
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. And we have a personnel action for the jail. Russell Egan, part-time assistant clerk, discharge, effective September 7th, 2021.
Move approved.
Second.
Terry?
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes.
It's cooked right.
We have the clerk of courts report of fees collected for August 2021. Report will be on file in the auditor's office and available for public review. We have minutes for the regular meeting of September 14th, 2021.
Move to approve. Second.
Terry?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. Future agenda items. We've got an appointment to the 911 board for next week, I think. I missed other business. Is there any other business?
I have none.
What? Was gonna mention, you guys sent us that, draft RFQ request for, qualifications for a engineer architect for the, a new public health facility. And I know you guys have seen it. I wouldn't mind sitting down and talk about that a little bit. I thought I would talk to Mike this morning. You guys did a good job on it. I was pleased. But have Brian look at it a little bit.
I have it, and I have not had a chance to look at it, but I do have it on email. I'll
Okay.
try to get a look at it this week.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that, because I was gonna add that to your list of other duties.
I'll take a look at it.
Other duties is assigned?
Yep,
Okay.
no problem.
So maybe we can get that done next week. Any other business or future agenda items?
I have none.
Committee reports.
I only had one meeting last week, and Krista gave everything that I could give you. It was a Board of Health meeting, and it was an interesting meeting. So she got you up to date on it, so thanks, Krista.
I was out of town for my work development meeting, so they're gonna have to catch me up on that this afternoon too. But I did happen to get in a jail visit, which was not part of a meeting, but it was a jail tour, and I thought it was very, very informative. And when I left, which they did let me leave, he gave me a little.
Did you arrive on your own volition?
Kind of, sort of.
I was wondering, was it part of the 10?
But I want you to get this though, when I left, Doug was such a sweetheart, he said, I want you to have something to remember this tour by. And he gave me a toothbrush that was that long and a bar of soap that was, it was that big. I said, man, the bar of soap that small, I hate to see the washcloth. But,
That isn't where I thought you were going.
God bless you. But anyways, it was informative. It really was, just to see the operations, and it can open up my eyes to some of the things that they're gonna have down the road. But anyways, I do wanna thank you personally for that. And I did wanna thank Brian again for the pension tour, giving me some insight on that. Dude, that was phenomenal. Now I can really get my hands around it. I know exactly what I'm talking about when somebody comes to me.
Thanks for making the time.
And I just want to remind everybody again, the job fair, September 30th from 2 to 5, Heartland, Harley Davidson.
October when?
September 30th.
Okay.
From 2 to 5, Heartland, Harley Davidson. That's it.
Kind of hard to make a shank out of a toothbrush that long.
That's when they're that long.
I meant to bring it. I'm going to bring it. It's out my car. I meant to bring it up so I could show everybody
exactly
how
why they're that long.
sweet he is.
Thank you, Shane. I attended the COBCO, the City County Health Insurance Board of Trustees, and mostly regular business. We did go through the claims updates, and we look pretty good so far. The even with the little jump that they'd expected after, because immediately after COVID, you couldn't get into the hospital or anything like that, so a lot of claims went down. So they knew they were going to jump a little bit, but it's I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary. So that seems to be going okay. And that's all I had. Public input. Anybody from the public would like to address the board, you may email the Board of Supervisors at board@dmcounty.com. That's board@dmcounty.com. Or call 319-753-8203, extension 4. That's 319-753-8203, extension 4. We'll give you a couple minutes to initiate that email or call. And in the meantime, if anybody in attendance have any comments? Don't all raise your hand at once.
I'm curious.
We have 2 viewers.
Yeah, you'll find out here. We have 5.
Ooh,
5. It is going up.
Hey, before I got elected, I was going through all the old meetings, just kind of catching up, and it seemed like all the numbers were pretty steady. I went back, I just wanted to catch a new meeting, with the new guy sitting on the end, and they plummeted. So we've got nothing to worry about. Nobody wants to watch us now that I'm down here.
I don't think we were very popular before that. I told Mrs. Broker once or twice, I said, it wouldn't hurt. I said, push the numbers up a few of your friends. I'm sure, pretty sure that didn't drive any viewership.
Mrs. Brooker didn't want to be a participant?
I don't think she was interested in the least. As long as I don't say anything that embarrasses her. And that's why I say something every once in a while, so maybe she will watch. I've got about 20 seconds left. Are you pretty much caught up with your schedule, Lisa, on that you had to have done by the end of September?
We're good for September.
Are you? Okay, okay. And the next dates in December?
As far as the homicide cases, the next one will be in January, and it's January 30th that is your deadline for all pre-COVID cases.
That's, in other words, more that deadline they have to get to trial.
It's the end of January, so each month is a little mini crisis until, as we deal with new demands and the inability to get to old waiver cases.
Your life would be a lot easier if you didn't have to deal with lawyers.
True.
No offense.
They are a pain in the ass.
Or condiments, the COVID ketchup. I hear that's really bad stuff.
Hearing no further comments, thank God. With an eye, we're adjourned.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Y'all have a great day.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Session regarding the American Rescue Plan Act funds for housing with Mr. Bob Bartles and Dale Schmidt, the Greater Burlington Partnership, and I believe Mike Norris from Southeast Iowa Regional Planning is online. Can you hear us, Mike?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
We can.
Not a long drive, Mike.
Okay.
Say again for me?
I said it's not a long drive. It's too bad you couldn't make it down here.
Yeah, I'd rather be down there, to be honest.
Okay, this is your work session, so if whoever wants to start and tell us what's going on, or try to explain what we can understand.
Well, y'all know with the ARPA funds that some of those can be used for housing. That would be true for the ARPA funds that the county has, and that would be true for the massive amount of ARPA funds that the state has. So the governor came out last week and she said that she's going to put $100 million into housing across the state of Iowa. And she broke that up into various pots, which Mike Norris on high there understands a lot better than I do. But one of them is a housing program where prison labor builds houses. $10 million would go for that purpose. And over in Newton, there's a program where they're building houses. West Burlington has one of those houses already. They're gonna do a massive move to increase the number of houses that are produced. That's a virtuous program because it teaches people who are in prison how to do construction tasks, gives them a skill. And so when they are able to leave, they have a needed skill to take with them. It's also virtuous in that the houses are well constructed and they're much less cost than what they would be if you just did a house.
Who supervises or runs that program?
They've got a set of hey, Mike, you want to talk about that program? Mike is a key person in making that happen. Go ahead.
Hope for Iowa is a public-private partnership, so the private part is a nonprofit.
Would you say Hopes?
Homes.
Homes for Iowa, okay.
So, wow, I'm sorry, guys, I've got a big echo, so I'll try to talk through it there. So I started a nonprofit called Homes for Iowa, Inc., and they set the policies for the program, like the price, who's eligible to buy, how many homes you're gonna make, takes out loans, receives funds, things like that. Then we partner with Iowa Prison Industries to actually build the houses, teach the men, and supervise the men. And then we move the houses out in one piece to buyers all across Iowa. So with the $10 million that they announced, we created a plan and request that would go for 3 years of building materials, shop and material, storage space, and then a second home moving setup. So we'll be able to actually accelerate the growth of the program. So as the program grows, we can train more men. As we train more men, they build more houses. And as more houses are built, more buyers will be able to develop those all over the state, including in southeast Iowa. So that's kind of the nutshell.
Mike, are these gonna be built at the prison or on site? At the prison?
To the prison.
These are all built in one piece outside of the Newton Correctional Facility. And then they're shipped in one piece by truck, and they're 24 feet wide, 50 feet long, and this requires an oversized, overweight, dual lane permit to move them. And by the end of 2021, we'll have moved 28 houses in total, life to date, starting from 2020. And then next year, we're looking to do right around 40. Next year, we should be doing 60, and then hopefully in about 4 years, we'll be hitting triple digits.
So they aren't modular houses, they're actually just one piece.
They're stick-built, one-piece homes, and they are moved on a flatbed, and then they are rolled onto a foundation, which can be a full basement, or it can be just a foundation. So the beauty of it is that on a full basement, a buyer would have an opportunity to finish the basement immediately or over time, and end up with a 4 or 5 bedroom, 2-bath home, as opposed to just a 3-bedroom, 1-bath home. And there is one of these in West Burlington. I don't know if we've touched on it yet, but the other beautiful thing about Homes for Iowa is that the end purchaser, there are income guidelines. And so this creates home ownership opportunities for individuals who would otherwise have a difficult time being able to transition potentially from a renter into a home ownership.
Do we have numbers? We know that obviously it's cheaper because the inmates are building it, but we don't know the cost, what it is comparative to other houses, and then what's the cost actually of transporting these homes? Do we have any?
We do have those numbers. Mike, it's your program, so I could rattle them off, but do you want to? Is he still with us?
If Mike could hear, Mike would say that, including the costs that go with those houses now, with the inflated costs that, with shortages and so on, it's about $95,000 to have that house made and delivered here, 80% complete. And
That does not include the foundation.
Correct.
correct.
Once they get it, wherever it's going, there's land, foundation, utilities, and appliances for the kitchen. The bath is fully equipped. So all in, depending upon the market area, it's roughly $165,000 or so is kind of the average. Once you add in all those other pieces.
Are you back yet, Mike?
Yeah, sorry about that, it was cutting in and out a little bit. So yeah, that is correct, we're selling, in 2022, we set the price at $90,000, which is delivered anywhere in the state and set on the foundation. Now, with this $10 million injection, we want to see how far we can lower that price without being injurious to the program. And these houses have been developed by a whole variety of buyers. We've got private developers putting them in brand new subdivisions and selling them for $220 plus. We've had a bank up in northern Iowa, Grundy Center. Actually, the brother of Bob Johans up there, we worked with him. And they subsidized one for an affordable project and sold that one for $140. We've done it for individual buyers, Habitat for Humanity sponsor homes. We've had nonprofits like the one Regional Planning has to build houses, Southeast Iowa Housing Inc. So it's really an adaptable house for a new subdivision, infill, affordable, for a profit-making project, and that's really the idea, is to make it as adaptable as possible, and that's going to just open up more buyers, which gives us a lot more training opportunities for the men. And something that we're going to be piloting here in the fourth quarter is starting an employer pipeline. And so this is where we're going to learn, kind of how to hone our sales pitch. to potential employers, so that eventually we can get to a point where we have information on all of our crew, and that information would be what training and certificates that they've earned while in the program, where they want to go in Iowa, if they want to stay in Iowa, and what trade that they might want to be engaged in. And then we can give that to the employers, but then also have the offenders see what the employers could offer them as far as a wage, what they could be doing, growth opportunities, fringe benefits, and things like that, and start that kind of matchmaking process so that upon release, they've got way a head start. They have the chance to know where they're going, what they could be doing, what kind of money they could be making, advanced discussion on transportation and housing, and hopefully through all that, really reduce recidivism and address some of the workforce challenges here in Iowa in the building trades.
And I've got one concern, and it might not be a concern. The $10 million that would be subsidized, and that would use to lower the price of the home. I'm a little uncomfortable that we would be selling those to developers, because developers are going to compete against other developers in this market. I have a problem with that. If they were selling it to end users, whether it would be an individual or, quite honestly, even if you were looking at like a Hope Haven or something like that that was building a site home, that's just an immediate reaction to that. I kind of hate to subsidize, pick out. Go ahead.
Mike, isn't there a cap on what what profit margin those homes could be sold for by developers?
Yeah, so we've got some caps on that, and actually got the president of the Home Builders of Iowa Association. So the idea of competing with private sector, we've got a lot of private sector folks on the board. That's been, an issue at the top of consideration. And number one, it's a 1,200 square foot product, which isn't really commonly built these days because of the profit capability of that size of house. Number two, we got a 10% profit limitation on there. And then number three, there's an income qualification on there of $100,000 taxable income. So the private folks that we've worked with so far, feel like it's a product that it's really hard for them to build anyway, and they probably wouldn't build it. But they like the mission of the training, and they're really, feel that the parameters, I don't think they're perfect, but we really tried to work with the private folks that are on our board with the home builders. We've got another contractor on our board. We got bank, real estate. And we also honestly have a liaison from the governor's office. And so, that's been something that we've tried to balance, I guess, from day one. And it feels like, at least with the people that have bought the homes and developed them and the ones that are kind of looking in on the process, I don't think there's a lot of adverse feelings about doing things. And I guess the last thing is, in some of the communities that we're, doing this in, there's if a home like this wasn't developed, then that's really a house that wouldn't have a concrete contractor, electrician, plumber, carpenters. They're not buying appliances, and so we kind of feel like we're in a niche there where it's not a really commonly developed product, but then combined with the mission and the other effects that there's, I think positive feelings with that setup.
Still not comfortable with supplying a new product line to a certain number or percentage of developers. Like I said, a lot of it sounds good enough if it's going to help individuals or that would own those homes. And I'm not tossing it out, I'm just being honest, this is what comes up to me for a minute. The people I'm sitting in the boards are gonna say, well, these guys, you know, the rest of us can't build homes in that. They're building them, making 10% on them. And I was in business long enough, if you've got one line of steady work, you can subsidize the rest of your work with that if you have to. It would be an advantage that would affect the market.
With Hope Haven, we deal with, and I'm moving out of this discussion a little bit, but addressing your quite legitimate concern. We, let's say we build a house. So we really make an effort for anybody who's interested in building that house, that it's a level playing field. There's no preference given, no favoritism to one qualified builder or another, and we look for the best bid. In a deal like this, the agenda is not to enrich a developer. The agenda is to create affordable housing for people who otherwise wouldn't have a nice new home, and for people who commit crimes to be given an opportunity to learn a skill that's desperately needed in our community and have a job when they get out, as opposed to not. So as I think about that concern, if we have a, let's say, and we're gonna discuss later ways the county might support things in terms of putting some of its own ARPA money into housing opportunities here in Burlington. But let's say we're doing what's called infill, and we're gonna build 5 homes somewhere in Des Moines County. That could be presented to any developer who's interested as an opportunity to do that. And the best deal could be the one that gets the business too, if you follow me there.
Well, and I do, and we might be confusing the term. When you use developer just there, I'm thinking home builder. So I'm thinking somebody that says, okay, I'm Tom Broker. I'd like to build a new house. There's the Schmidt construction and the Bartles construction, and I say, well, this is what I want, is a 1,200 square foot house. I want this and that in it. And I say, what will you guys bid that? And I do not have a problem if well, problem is probably the wrong thing, is if it was gonna go, that these houses would be available to people with, or income considerations or whatever that would be.
Yeah.
Is that there would be a list, said these are local contractors or area contractors that are familiar, as long as, you know, they're willing to do this, they're willing to bid on this. Should be fairly simple for those guys. If they know exactly what the dimensions of that house are, they said, okay, what's it gonna cost to bring a sewer here, or this or that, so that, and then compete with that. I do, by developer, I'm thinking somebody, a spec home, I'm thinking it says, well, they're gonna give me one of these $95,000 homes, and I'm gonna say, broker, home builders, you know, has got one of these homes, or we're the one that gets these homes.
Yep.
You have to come and talk to me. I'm not comfortable with that.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody has to pay for the home. So this isn't like we deliver a free home and then like our cost is 95. Like anybody has to pay for the home, and so it's not like it's like anybody that wants to develop the home, they have to pay us, pay Homes for Iowa for the home, and then it's delivered, and they, you know, they can choose to buy that home, or they can choose to stick build that another like kind of home, but it's not a no charge home.
Well, no, I'm not saying no charge, I'm just saying if only one or two developers, I'm saying developers, they know, okay, Broker Home Builders is gonna get 4 of these homes delivered in the Burlington area over the next 12 months. Then you can limit my profit margin to 10%. That has an effect on the market, because I'm gonna sell those 4 homes. I can plan ahead. I said, I know I'm gonna make X number of dollars on those homes.
You're gonna sell those 4 homes to people who are income eligible.
Yep.
Right.
But I know I'm gonna sell them, I know I'm gonna get the 10%.
And any of those developers are free to buy as many homes as they want from Mike, and he would love to sell them to them.
Yeah,
So that's where the playing field is level, to use your example of, if we were both developers, we both, as separate entities, could still purchase from the same Homes for Iowa. And that is part of what would level the playing field. The other thing that I think is really important to note here, and we have some developers on our housing committee, which we've talked to you folks about before and are still looking at some point for county representation on the housing committee, but we have developers on the housing committee. They have a couple of, how do I call them, problems? They have a couple realities, and some of those realities are they're looking for a greater profit margin than that. They're not interested in building homes of this size. They're looking for things that appeal to a different section of our market area. And the need for homes throughout Des Moines County is not limited to first-time buyers or folks who have a total income of $100,000 or less. We have a housing shortage across every aspect, from executive-style homes to multifamily, to young professional, to homes to move seniors out of their big old homes into something else for their, all of it. This is trying to find a solution to one piece of a very, very big complex problem. And the developers that we have at the table are more interested so far in the other areas of that puzzle than this segment. And that's why we see Homes for Iowa as being a really attractive partner for addressing how do we create an inventory and capacity for individuals who may otherwise not ever be able to afford getting into an actual home as opposed to being a renter.
I've got, my question is different from Tom's. I'm down to help and solve the problem with recidivism, so I'm never against trying to get skills into the hands of people that don't have. That being said, my question is, you said that there are $90,000 to deliver them, and they're not complete. I see that as another level of house that people can't reach. When it's all said and done, you're talking 160 grand complete, and we've got an infill problem here in Des Moines County where there's homes that are sitting and people won't move into town. People are looking to move out. So where are these new houses that are coming in? Are they coming into town? Because I think that's gonna be a problem as well, and it's gonna create another problem that we've already got, is keeping people in these communities, in these neighborhoods. And some neighborhoods, and I wanna hear you, but some neighborhoods, the $90,000 and the $160,000 house, it doesn't fit in there. So if this is the model that we're getting, what about the people that can only afford, where there's a good infill house, needs some remodeling, 40 grand and 20 for it, and they're into a house for 65 grand, and it's not brand new, but it's in a community, they've got a house and it's affordable, well, they can afford it. So to me, I'm not seeing how this is being a true benefit to meet everybody's needs. It's only meeting a certain need, and I don't see $160,000 houses going into a lot of the areas where we have a problem. That's where I'm.
So, it's almost like you were looking at our notes, because, again, the puzzle is bigger than just this. We've started with talking about Homes for Iowa, but, you are absolutely right. There are other opportunities and other needs, and there's other ways to leverage this major investment that the state of Iowa is going to make in the housing industry. So we started talking to you about and trying to help you understand what Homes in Iowa is and how they're one part. But there is things that we can do and that our housing committee is working on with Southeast Iowa Regional Planning Commission, city, we'd like to work with the county, that includes infill, includes rehabbing current homes. That isn't about taking a lot or creating a whole new development of new homes. And I think that gets to your area of concern. How do we help take an older home that maybe needs new roof, new plumbing, new wiring, some other kind of cosmetics, and turn those into forgivable loans for homeowners if they stay in their home or get into a home for the first time. Those are other tools that are part of the toolbox that we wanted to expand the conversation with. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because you're absolutely right. Homes for Iowa has an opportunity to fill one niche. There are other niches that we need to address in the bigger picture.
My only, oh, go ahead. My concern though is meeting that need, it may create another problem. Go ahead.
Mike?
Shane, just to follow that too, I mean, it's, you know, the Homes for Iowa was great, I appreciate all the discussion about it, but that's just kind of one little item in the whole menu of things that I think we need to look at. And it could potentially affect with ARPA funds and those new investments. So, you know, looking at the overall housing needs in the community, we've got a multifamily quantity issue and a condition issue. There's a lot of kind of substandard products out there that, you know, for one reason or another, they're not really, you know, keeping and attracting people to live in our communities, which kind of talks to what, you know, Shane was talking about. So I'm kind of imagining, could we create a family of funds with ARPA to help encourage new construction and rehab of multifamily housing? And this could be some kind of like a loan fund, like a gap finance fund, a single-family owner-occupied rehab to strengthen, you know, the existing rehab programs that we have now, because rehab is extremely important. It helps keep people in their homes, it stabilizes values in the neighborhood, and it kind of continues the character of what makes our, you know, our communities what they are. And then finally, single-family housing development fund, where we can do appropriate to the neighborhood in terms of cost and size and things like that, projects where, you know, we can help people accomplish housing churn, moving to new houses and laddering up if they want to, but projects that would be attainable as well. So I guess, you know, looking at the multifamily, the single family, and the rehab, you know, I think we can maybe imagine a family of funds that could attack a lot of these things in parallel, and then also leverage other funds that are simply, you know, on the sideline right now, either from private financing, outside grant funds, or tax credits. So it's a lot bigger conversation, of course, than just one you know, particular new housing product. You know, I think it's a conversation that we can look at rehab, we can look at new construction across single and multifamily, really to help the people we have in our communities now, help them stay here, and maybe even attract some other new people.
Say, Mike, if the city takes a property which is dilapidated and removes it in a neighborhood of homes where maybe $80,000 would be the high end of what people are paying, and they put one of these homes that's value is $160,000, when you get the site prep and the 90-some thousand expenditure in that vacant spot, and it's a 1,200 square foot new home, not ostentatious, but still its cost is a lot greater than the 80,000 of that neighborhood at that time. The only people who can buy it are people whose income is not all that great already. I know that there's ways to pay down a mortgage, $7,500 from y'all, $5,000 from Christian Action, say. With this governor's proposal, we haven't mentioned it, but if it's a minority homeowner or buyer, they can get $5,000 more. That's one other thing that was in this governor's proposal. Is there a possibility for gap financing out of the housing trust fund you have, Mike, to make that property the people of the community that really can only afford the $80,000 home?
Something that really limits.
Start all over, Mike, you lost me. You're in the matrix, Mike. Can you start again? You're in the matrix, man.
All right, I'll take, what pill do I need to take, the red pill?
There you go.
Down that pill and stay close to the mic.
Stay away from, well, I won't say that.
So, one of the things that we see on a regular basis, people looking for down payment assistance, number one is a credit score. There's a lot of credit issues out there. And, to get financing, banks have a minimum credit score, and a lot of people can't meet that. So then what do? Well, they either don't buy or they try to buy on contract. And a lot of contract sales are other issues because you can't, in many contract sales, you don't have the ability to build equity. And so it's a cash down payment, and then you rent, and then you have a chance to buy the house really at any time. But then the contract balloons after 3 to 5 years, and to stay in the contract, then you need to put another cash payment down. Now, not all of them are like that, but those seem more typical than not. And so the credit score is really an issue. And if you can break the credit score issue, then you're looking at some other down payment options, to help make that affordable. Now, the other thing is, I've imagined all kinds of different things about how we can, affect housing depending on the situation and the willingness. I mean, what Christian Action has done is a very pro-buyer contract still, where they allow them to build equity, and they basically kind of, do that special financing. And so there's a lot of issues with neighborhood development. I won't pretend that regional planning has encountered them all. We've encountered many, but we are very, pro-owner, pro-buyer. We work with a whole variety of people from the very, very low. We're from an income level of, under 30% that are in their homes to, people that are, much higher than that at 80% income. So there's a whole host of issues out there, but I think there's a point that a lot of people have come to in the community that, we need a different variety of new units, whether those be, single family or multifamily, and that there's a lot of rehab opportunities. And so really, we just want to, bring that to the policymakers and say, we are ready to help. We're ready to deploy investment in ways that really benefit the owners and the community. And hopefully, all that will add up to a better future.
Tom, with the desire for equity across developers, if every developer is given the opportunity to buy houses at the same price, does that satisfy that concern?
And it does, and quite honestly, and I have to think about it a little bit. I guess the gist of it is, if there is a subsidy, I want that to go to the borrower.
Yes.
To,
Yeah.
I don't want, and I don't want, when we first talked about it, remember we talked about it, and I told you that I was worried about something hurting the market.
Yes.
And that's when USA, when they send aid to Somalia or something like that,
Right.
they always send the food.
Right.
The first thing that does is it collapses their local
Right.
agricultural markets, because they can get free food, they're
Right.
not gonna buy it. So, and I worry about that. I would like to see it go, or want it to go to the borrowers. And I don't, from the subsidies, you'd have to, it is not fair to the country at large, and certainly not to the borrowers, to put people in homes they can't afford.
Right.
To say, we're gonna see that you don't have to pay a down payment, we're gonna subsidize your down payment. And a year down the road, they're underwater.
Right.
And they, I can drive you right now to a house out in the country that would break your heart. So anyway, those are just, and I'm glad you guys are here and think through, but those are the two things that would concern me. And not that I have anything against people owning their own homes or making it easier for them, but I don't want either of those things to happen.
I think both of you are asking excellent questions. I do.
I
And-
just
and-
copy, I was reading off his sheet over here.
I was reading off of yours.
If I understand the gap financing, and Mike's our expert, not me, the intention there is to give extra money to a home buyer to get the cost of their mortgage in line with what they can actually afford. And then the credit score requirement is to have them demonstrate a ability to manage money so that if their income right now, what they're spending right now for rent is equivalent to, let's say, 30% of their income, and it would allow for an $80,000 home, the gap financing would try to get their mortgage payment to reflect that of an $80,000 home.
That-
I think that's.
That I can see the mortgage here, almost more than the down payment, because you should have a little equity in it, but if the payments look, said we could do that,
Yeah.
make that a little more possible. I don't know. And I'm not trying to pick up what you're saying, except those are just my
It's
immediate.
helpful. We're all, on the one hand, from my perspective, what a wonderful opportunity. The state's got all this money and they want to put it into housing. Isn't that great? And then there's, how can we do it effectively and not do harm while we're trying to do good, So, one other thing besides the Homes for Iowa program is some funds for minority home ownership. So $5,000 per minority homeowner as down payment assistance in addition to whatever else might be available. So the governor has that in there. And I
What's
think-
that?
Pardon?
What's that?
A $5,000 down payment assistance for minority homeowners.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a segment of it that's related to downtown buildings. And I believe it's one building per, I think actually, I'll let Della come back because that's gonna affect her directly with a typewriter building that the downtown partners owns. So then, where the county might come in, so the Homes for Iowa, the county doesn't necessarily have to spend money, or if you chose to, you would be putting ARPA money directly in that. For the minority down payment assistance, same thing. But there's opportunity to help people who are already own their home but not able to fix it up to receive support to do that if they meet certain income guidelines. And there's money available for multifamily housing where you could put money into that to help that be affordable housing for middle income people or for low income people. And then there's money available for single family housing, which Hope Haven's 4-bedroom homes are considered single family housing. But in a house like this, Homes for Iowa would be single family housing. Someone's going to need to submit a proposal to the state saying, we want you to put a bunch of money here in our communities, and here's what we would do with it. So if there's a collaborative effort, which would Della and Hope Haven and SEIRPC and quite possibly the city of Burlington, there is a collaborative effort, and hopefully the county in some way as well.
Can I interrupt for just a second? I apologize.
it's all
Just so
right.
it could, when we talk, you said if the county puts in money, would our money act as a match for the state money? Is that what,
There is,
or does it go to different places?
Mike, do you remember is there one of these that has a match requirement? Like 25%, and you're more likely to get it if you do more than 25%?
Well, I guess let me just start to say, I don't know that we should necessarily tie our, local ARPA funds to the two IFA grant opportunities open now. I think that's a potential. I don't think it's a must.
Okay.
But I think, where I think we should be more talking is really with the themes and, the potential outcomes that we could achieve with investment from ARPA, into housing. And I think that we can always stack on more specifics as we go. But, I guess I was kind of curious today about if there was going to be any sort of head nodding or agreement on, yes, we want to deploy some ARPA funds, for housing, and, what areas, emphasize single-family rehab, multifamily, anything, come with specifics. That's kind of where I was curious, if the conversation was going to go that way. Number one, if there was some general support in using ARPA for housing, which I hope there is, and if there is, what areas? And after, if there are support in certain areas, what could that look like? And at that point, we can imagine a whole host of specifics. There's a bright, shiny housing toolbox that we can open up and apply to, different situations. So maybe just to bring it back a little more broadly, I mean, is there general support for that future where there is some ARPA investment into housing?
I assume that's a question.
Yes, sir.
Some of it, and it sounds like the idea of a single or family rehabilitation, whatever the term was for that. That I can see that, and I'm not going, but my concerns. Yeah, I'm sure I would be supportive of some of this stuff. Some of it I would. Right now, I couldn't tell you whether I did or didn't. I'd want to look at it and think about it just a little bit for the reasons that I've brought up that always concern me. But yeah, this is one of the few things that the ARPA funds, their interim final rule says you can spend money on housing, and so, and I think it's a need. I'm concerned about lowering down payments. Not that there's somebody there's pride ownership, and I think that's good for everybody, but I don't want anybody in over their head, and that's a terrible thing to do to somebody. So that's not much of an answer, Mike. That's what I've got right now.
Well, I appreciate that, Tom, and, Shane or Jim, I mean, what are you guys' thoughts? Do you guys see a general future here where there's, where there can be some ARPA investment? Is that what you guys are feeling too?
Can I interrupt one thing? Or have you guys got a number in mind? I know you said, did we have any idea what we'd be getting from the state?
I think the state wants us to think big. There's, this is perception, so take it that way, not as absolute truth, but, and I like truth, by the way. My perception is the more money we put into this, we being the county, Hope Haven, the chamber, the city of Burlington, the more money we put in, the more likely we're gonna get what we ask for.
From the state?
Yes.
Okay.
I like the ratio of like a 1 to 3. So if we spent $1 million total, or pledged $1 million to housing, the state gives us $3 million. I like that ratio.
State like that ratio?
Well, I think the state likes, I'll say is, going back to truth, not perception, the state really likes Mike Norris. They really like him. They just gave him $10 million for his nonprofit. And I went to a conference where he's a leader and he's being honored. Don't get too fat ahead here, Mike, but that's a fact. The state likes Hope Haven. When they give us money, and some of the folks who make the decisions on this do, we use it exactly the way it's intended for. We're efficient. We have a good mission. So there's a part of this is you're scoring and you either make the score or you don't. That's an objective measure. On the subjective side, the state wants to give money to the sorts of things that we work on here, that Mike works on and that Hope Haven works on. They do, they really do. I've never had in my, oh God, longer than Shane's been born life, working in this field, had top state leaders tell me, send a proposal, Bob. And they're not saying send this proposal, but they want me to send a proposal for what we can do, Hope Haven can do. So I think the prospects here are very good that we're gonna get, not necessarily everything we ask for, but I think the prospects are very good.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
When you have organizations or government, state, whatever, sometimes they have their special picks, and you can see how that, they do.
I don't
know how that
want to be a
works.
special pick.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't know how that works, but it does appear that some of that comes into play. Now, Mike, you asked me where I stand. I'll tell you straight up where I stand, my brother. I wanna help Des Moines County in our issues. I don't wanna stand in the way of that. But I still see a problem with demolition. We've got an infill problem, and it's gonna keep getting greater if we don't deal with the problems that are falling down. So rehab, you had me at hello. I wanna find a way to make this work. I'm serious. All the other stuff, I don't know. I'm not saying that I'm against it, I'm just saying, I don't have my hands around it, I don't know, because I still see that causing a greater problem in some other area. And I don't wanna, you don't wanna fix a problem and create another problem. You wanna fix a problem and fix the problem.
Yeah.
So, I'm open for conversation, I am. And again, what you said about, somebody likes Hope Haven and somebody likes Mike Norris, I believe that. There's a lot of people that don't like me, so that's what I'm not getting at. But I would like to get an actual amount, kind of what you had in mind. And I don't know, I just gotta hear more, just because, again, on rehab and infill, I'm all there. I feel like there should be money available for that, and that's going to change even the dynamics, because we can address a lot of different things. I know a guy that, just wanna throw this out there, I know a guy that just bought a house for, I think, like $12,000, something like that. Might even been less, but he bought a house for $12,000. He put in, under $50,000 into this house. Everything passes. I've seen the house, and I didn't go through it with a fine tooth comb, but I know the guy does good work, everything passed. He's got a house that we were gonna have to tear down. That costs money, we're gonna have to tear this down.
Yeah.
And this guy came in, and now he's got a family in there, and they can afford it. So, I mean, some of this stuff obviously isn't going to happen organically, and you need a little kicker, but some stuff I'm still not sure if we need to kick it.
One of the things that we would welcome, and this seems as good of a time as any to reiterate that, we would love to have somebody from Des Moines County on our housing committee, which Bob chairs. And so, Shane, if you've got a particular passion and insight into this, we would love to have you. If it's somebody else, if it's a staff person, but we don't have Des Moines County represented right now, and we would really like to, especially given what's coming out of the state and what we're now positioning ourselves for. When we started our little housing task force a few months ago, we didn't know this was coming. Now it's, you know, pedal to the floor, we gotta get some things in order to make sure we make these application deadlines and then make sure that Des Moines County gets their fair share of this action. So, would love to have somebody from Des Moines County officially join our committee and help guide those conversations, so when we come back with the more details that it sounds like you gentlemen are looking for, we've already had a little bit of, insight and guidance, if you will, by having somebody at the table.
How about the recorder?
Whoever.
I just wanted to see the look on her face when I said that. Don't get him that, don't do it, girl.
But I think the chairman,
Excellent
I
choice.
think that ought to be, I think that ought to be you on that.
That's,
You see that by doing this, making affordable housing for people, and if we get some of this going, will it help bring some more industry into this Des Moines County? Because
Sure.
we need industry in Des Moines County.
Right.
Without that, this affordable housing is gonna go to pot anyway. The
So-
people's gonna be moving out. And then they're gonna be doing like what Shane says, the old houses they're gonna have to remodel because they can't afford to have the affordable housing.
So Jim, you touch on something that is a high priority for the partnership. And it is a little bit of chicken and egg sometimes, or sometimes you feel like you're running in circles trying to, well, I call it, have you played that whack-a-mole game where you kind of pop something down and two other things? So to get to your question, there are facets that feed into each other. Housing feeds into population sustainability and growth. Population sustainability and growth feeds into being able to attract and retain industry. The number one thing that we receive as requests when we have industry inquiries and they're thinking about locating, and as you folks know, the ABB building, it's a high priority to get a new industry in there. The number one thing is workforce. It's the number one thing. And we can't address.
And one thing is what?
Workforce, available, ready-to-work workforce.
Oh,
When-
for industry to come in.
Right. The other interesting balancing act we have, sometimes it feels like when we do make a big announcement, you know, we've got the Integra pool covers to come into the old Siemens building. So on one hand, we're like, yay, we've got this great announcement with this company coming in, they're gonna create all these jobs. And then we feel a little bit like we gotta, you know, but don't, because the local employers are going, hey, wait a minute, we're trying to fill our workers, our workforce needs, and you're bringing in more demand, and are they just gonna steal people from us? So this is the balancing act. Housing is an important part of the puzzle of being able to sustain and grow our population. Because without population growth, we can't do any of the other things that we're talking about. And so that's the ultimate goal, and we have lots of parts and pieces to that. We're not here to talk about that today, but the ultimate growth is to stem the bleeding and turn the tide on population in Greater Burlington and Des Moines County. Housing is an integral part of that.
See, I'm dumb. I've always been slow, you know what I'm saying? But I don't see housing as high up. I never have. Now, and hear me when I say this. No, I know housing is definitely a priority. I know when people are gonna move, they're gonna say, where am I gonna live? You know what I'm saying? That obviously comes up. But I've been going through this process since I've been on council. Well, since I was on council, so 8 years ago, that housing was a big problem. Filling jobs is a problem in Des Moines County. We've got over 1,000, well over 1,000, you know, I'm not gonna preach to the choir. We've got all of these jobs that nobody will fill. We've gotta get them to fill the jobs first to get them to be able to buy a house. Because if nobody's doing any, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you're talking about the chicken and the egg, but
Exactly.
we get them booties, you know what I'm saying, where they're going back to work every week and not just working for a week and getting a paycheck. Once we get them back in there, I just feel like, are we really meeting this need, or are we seeing this money, and, which I still think, if there's money available, let's make sure we use it wisely, and let's make sure we do something for Des Moines County. But is that really the need? Is the 90,000 homes from the, and I wanna put the workers to work, man. I wanna, when they get out of the jail, man, they say, hey, I'm a carpenter, I'll hire them to come fix my stuff. My point is that going to is that really gonna do what we want it to do? Or is that just gonna be throwing a, you know, a rock at an unmovable object? And we
So-
focus somewhere else?
So a couple of things, and I know Bob will have some thoughts on this because you've done a lot in workforce for Hope Haven. A couple of things. First of all, gentlemen, there is no silver bullet. There is no fix this and then all the workforce issues disappear. That's never going to happen. So I just want to be clear. The workforce issue is complex and they are multifaceted. Housing is absolutely part of the problem. There's three primary areas when we think about what to do about workforce. The first one is, and not in priority, but just in general. One of them is what you're referring to right now, which is how do we get the currently able-bodied, ready-to-work people who for a number of reasons aren't working and get them to participate. Okay, that's one issue. Second issue is what I call skills alignment and emerging workforce. So how do we work with our schools to get our students who are part of the talent pipeline to understand where are the in-demand jobs of the future? And what do they need to be doing while they're in middle school and high school, and then aligning what they're gonna do afterward with either SEC or other programs, so that they have the skill set
Right.
for what employers are hiring for. Because it doesn't do employers any good to post a welding job and have 20 people apply and have none of them have a certification in welding. That doesn't do the trick. It doesn't do any good for the healthcare industry to post a job and then say, I need somebody who at least has their CNA, their certified nursing assistant, and they don't have it. So there's the skills alignment, that's a piece. The third piece is population. Because even if we had some of those folks that for reasons that are multifaceted, not part of the workforce, and we solve that, the talent pipeline that's K-12, that's gonna take time, because we only graduate so many every year, right? Workforce by population growth is the other answer, and that's multifaceted. There is tremendous opportunity among immigrant populations. But that means that as a county, Des Moines County and the communities within it have some work to do in order to be intentionally friendly and receiving and welcoming to people of diverse backgrounds and populations. But if you look at the population growth in the state of Iowa, Debbie Durham was just reporting on this when she was with us last week, the high percentage of population growth that has occurred in the state of Iowa has been amongst immigrant populations. So there, we've got some work to do around that. But even if, and Bob and I like to have these conversations, we call each other, text each other, even if we were able to bring in 20, that's a pretty low threshold, 20 immigrant individuals with families into Des Moines County right now, we don't have housing to attract them and bring them in. And then on the other extreme, if we talk about high-level professionals, high-level engineering, IT positions, specialized physicians and things like that for Southeast Iowa Regional Medical Center, they, on a regular basis, I hear this from them more times than I can count, have lost people that they've been trying to attract here because of lack of housing. These people are saying it. Thanks for the job offer. I can't find enough homes to give me variety of what I want to buy. You're giving me 2 houses to pick from. I'm going to go to a different market area. So it's multifaceted. Housing is a piece of it. It's not the only piece, but it is a critical piece, and it's the piece that the state of Iowa right now is putting a boatload of money around, and we want to be positioned to take advantage of that investment.
My question is, how did we bypass why are we bypassing the unemployment rate in Des Moines County? You know what I'm saying? I mean, because not everybody in Des Moines County is working. I don't know how many people are out of work, but we've got these butts to fill, and you wanna bring people in, but we've got people right here that we need to get their butts to work. So I'm saying, they've already got a place to stay, they're already.
Right, we are working on that as well. Today, we're here to
Oh,
talk
no, I'm
about
not saying,
housing. Yeah.
I'm not saying that you're not working on that, you guys work hard. No, I'm saying that when it comes to this,
Right.
you know, what we're talking about now, because all of these things, as we all say, they tie together, they all kind of work in concert, so are we creating more of a problem, you know what I'm saying, by, you know, it's almost like we're giving up. This is how I feel about it. I feel like in Des Moines County, we're giving up on making sure that we get all these butts back to work. It's like we want to look at every other thing. We got to bring people from without. Let's get these knuckleheads here working. Let's get them in some new houses. You know, I feel like the problem always takes care of itself when we let it work that way. But if all our focus when I was city council, that was all of us. We've got to bring people into Burlington. We've got to grow the numbers of Burlington. I just feel like if everybody in Burlington is making a good wage, has a good job, has a place to stay, it's gonna happen organically just because they're gonna get married, they're gonna have girlfriends and kids, they have a life here, they don't have to go anywhere else. We need to get the people that are here that are unemployed, that aren't working, we need to get them back to work. And I'm just saying that's a bigger problem to me than trying to create a house, or try to make a house.
It is a big problem, and it's not unique to Greater Burlington. It is a problem across the nation, it is a problem across Iowa. I believe, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, but the data that Debbie Durham provided last week was that the workforce participation rate is down in 64%,
Yeah.
which is the lowest participation rate in the state of Iowa in maybe ever or decades. And so this is a state problem that has been exacerbated by the pandemic. And there are aspects of it that a lot of people are trying to figure out. One of the greatest exoduses that have happened in the last 18 months is actually among women ages 40 to 54, have left the workplace and have not come back. And IEDA is trying to figure out why is that? So there's layers and layers and lots of issues. And we're working on all of them. But right now, we just wanted to come and talk about housing and this opportunity represented by the state of Iowa to start positioning our region to be receivers of some of this money. This millions and millions are going to get spent all across the state of Iowa. What do you think, Bob? We just want to make sure our fair share is here in southeast Iowa.
As an employer, I had a conversation earlier today, first meeting of the day before coming here. I am surprised at the number of vacancies, employment vacancies Hope Haven has. It's never been worse, all right? 3 months ago, we took our entry wage from $12 an hour to $15 an hour. Huge increase, biggest in history. Huge financial investment in our workforce and the effort to recruit people who are still not at work or not even from around here. Didn't work. Made a decision today to propose to my board next week to take that to $16 an hour. It's not gonna be enough, but we can't grow. We have, let's say 30 to 40 jobs unfilled or more. And the opportunity to have more jobs, because we got growth we can do, there's a need, the needs exceed the services that are available. So for about 3 years, I've been trying to, and also there's maybe 400 or 500 people, let's say, who fit the skill set that we need in our community, or 400 to 500 people who are unemployed, maybe got 1,000 to 1,200 job openings and more. So the workforce has a belief now for me, it's not here. There's not enough workers here to fill the jobs. If we're gonna not shrink further, and that's the eventual outcome, Hope Haven shrinks, we've gotta get people from somewhere else. And I've failed at that, keep trying, but I've failed. But here's what I've learned on that journey. Childcare, good schools, safe neighborhood to live in, welcoming community people who don't look like I do, who may be Muslim or some other faith. A wage that makes it worthwhile to come here. That wage is it's definitely not $16 an hour for what we do. It might be 19, which I'm not financially capable of making, but the wages have to go up in our industry or it's not gonna work. And for the immigrant communities, which I see as a huge opportunity, because Burlington, such a cool place. And our communities around us are really cool. If you ever get here, people don't wanna leave. But there's no immigrant community of substance that I'm aware of, at least available to us. And people don't wanna go where they're the pioneer. So we need to find some pioneers, and so far I haven't been successful, but I keep trying. Could be Afghan refugees, but they're all going to places where there's immigrant communities already established, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, and so on. And the affordable housing, I didn't say that maybe, but that is an issue. If I could pay 4 months' rent in a place that's affordable for a $15 an hour job as a way to get people here, that would help. And that's where we may end up. We may buy some of those multifamily housing units that y'all are gonna help us create, I hope, to put workers in. So it's quite the deal. This is a really thorny problem. One last thing on housing. For vision, we could pick an area of our community, let's say a few blocks. We could target it with these funds that Mike's talking about that are, let's say, a couple of $1 million that we have now. We could target that community and approach every homeowner in the area that's income eligible and say, what does your home need? Roof, heating, air conditioning, whatever it is, and help those homeowners fix up their homes. We could remove any properties that are not salvageable infrastructure-wise and have at least the consideration of building one of these Mike's homes and putting it in there and subsidizing the homeowner to own it. We could do multifamily housing for in those neighborhoods to have affordable rents for people to be there. So we could start turning a part of our community around from where they're at now. I kind of like that idea. I'm just speaking for myself here, that's not a group agenda. But I see possibility. I can visualize the community where there's church anchors, you might say, and community leaders, 3 or 4 block area, and just expand out until we've used up all the money, except that we like for the fund to be partially replenishable. So we look for ways to leverage that money to have more money come in. And I feel like I'm doing all the talking and off on a ramble here, so I'm gonna stop.
One thing that this money, we need a new public health building.
Yes.
It's hard for us to sit up there and say, we can give you so much now or so much then.
Yeah.
This is our #1 priority, and I'm dedicated for this.
Yes.
We don't know how much we're gonna have to spend for this,
Yes.
for the land and that, but until that, then we're gonna have to sit down, see where we're at, and then we can just distribute the money.
Yes.
So, that's where I'm at right now. I've gotta be honest about it. I love your presentation.
Thank
I
you.
see a lot of need in it, and
Yeah. Yeah.
thanks for enlightening me on this, with the jobs industry, you know, working
Yeah.
hand in hand. And we do need more industry. And one last statement, and then I'm through. If they'd give the people at work the $600, they'd be standing in line, we wouldn't have this work shortage.
If y'all wait, I think we're gonna miss the opportunity, depending on how long you wait. I don't know how much it takes to do a public health building. I suspect that it's not an either or deal, but some of this stuff is gotta be turned in like in November or something like that.
And that was, I was just gonna ask you, I know you mentioned to me, that you needed to apply to the state or something, that's in November, I knew it was sometime this fall. Okay, end of November, 1st of November?
You know the dates, Mike?
When you.
Oh, yes, Mike, I'm sorry.
He's not answering.
Do you know the date, the deadline for the application for state funds?
So there's two new applications for state funds. One is for downtown upper story housing. And that is limited to one per community. And that's due in January. And then the other one is a neighborhood rehabilitation block grant program. And I think that was kicked, I'd have to double check it. Both of those started out in November, but then I think they kicked both of them to January. But I will double check on that. So those are the two new opportunities, that's available, specifically through the state. Now, Debbie Durham is a deal maker. Everybody's met her. If Bob shoots a proposal out that's just kind of outside of the construct of any program, who knows what may happen to that. But the two defined programs that you can apply for out of the $100 million the governor announced, of course, people can order a home trial home at any time. But that's kind of apart from this. It's the downtown and it's the rehabilitation. Those are the two new ones.
And for the county funding, if it's November or January, that's whatever their timeline is, that'd be the defining deal. If I do a Hope Haven proposal, which I'm quite capable of doing, it'll be geared towards people with disabilities and our workforce issues,
When you do this proposal, though, you have to have exact numbers and that sort of thing. You can't deal with estimates.
For the reason we're here today, if y'all say, and I'm hearing that, or I think I'm hearing that y'all have said, we're supportive of putting some money towards housing with a possible qualifier that there might not be enough because public health buildings are our first priority. That's what we were looking for here today, plus to educate you as to what's out there. Beyond that, and so that's why we're here, and that's what we would use the county money for. And a part of that would be for some housing for people served by people with disability, or for people with disabilities served by Hope Haven, hopefully. Beyond that, there's a lot we can do. I'll have to take the pulse of the state because we're not greedy, but we also don't want to miss an opportunity, and they want us to do something, We may propose a lot more than the two houses that I'm thinking of within this context, and maybe some apartments for workers or people with disabilities. We may propose a lot more. Build a lot of houses, create housing for, let's say, students, some of whom could be immigrant students, as long as they work in healthcare. Some of them for Hope Haven. We've got some 8-bedroom homes that we could convert, and they could go to SCC. That's a virtuous circle if that happened. This is just an idea, not a plan necessarily. So the state has a lot of unmet needs, and providers are not growing. Typically, they're collapsing the services because the workforce is such a big deal. So we could help them. We have the capacity to help them. And they've got a bunch of money they want to put to effective use. So we'll see.
So gentlemen, we'd like to take some time to think about the questions you've asked and the comments that you've made. You think about what we've been able to share with you. Again, that invitation for somebody from Des Moines County to join our housing, started out as a task force, we're gonna turn it into a committee.
That might be a good place.
Because we want to expand it
I just
to,
got the experience. I just rather, well, you do, I'm just saying on some of the background stuff that you guys have already dealt with.
Okay.
I don't know what you.
We'll work that out.
okay, don't have to make that decision today. I just want to point out that remains an open invitation. We continue to grow that committee. We want more people in the tent, And we want it to be about Des Moines County, not just Burlington or West Burlington, but we really are trying to expand our vision about housing because our workforce comes from all over. And so we need more people at the table as we talk about it. And then we look forward to coming back to you in the next several weeks, it'll probably be a month or two, as we understand more about what the state is offering, how we can position it, what the other partners are interested. And you continue, I assume, to work through your process regarding the health services building. And we'll just hope that at some point it all aligns and that we can get the number one priority for the county done, but that perhaps there's going to be an opportunity to peel off at least some small percentages of that ARPA money and do some other good work in the county with it as well, which is housing and workforce is our appeal to you, so. So thank you for that. We look forward to coming back and talking to you and building from today's conversation.
Okay, appreciate that, I think.
Yep.
You're welcome. Thank you for putting so much time into it.
No, we appreciate it, like I said, speaking for me, I am sympathetic or leaning towards some of the things you've mentioned, but, so, time well spent.
Yeah.
Touche. Thank you. Y'all have a great day.
All right.
And we have a work session with Chris Lee, it looks like part of the conservation board. We're gonna take a 10-minute break.
10 minutes?
You guys can, well, whatever we need. Thank you. Okay, we have a work session with conservation regarding the American Rescue Plan Act funds. Chris, do you want to introduce yourself and your board members?
Yeah, so Chris Lee, Conservation Department Director. I have with me Julie Selinsky and Bob Hanson, two of our board members, come along. And,
You have to invite Bob both.
well, you know, yeah, I'm surprised he got the message, it's kind of short notice, so Bob's not big on emails, I don't think. But, so I appreciate them coming. So you've got a handout in front of you. So what I tried to do is come down with specific numbers, and these are priority projects for the ARPA funds or wherever we can find the dollars. And we can break these out in a number of different ways, and I'll kind of go through that one by one. So these are kind of laid out in order of priority for the most part. What we run into is that there's different pools of dollars that can be used for different things, and so depending on the availability of those pools of dollars, some of these may jump in front of others as far as projects go. But number one is a new Conservation Department maintenance facility. Whether it's ARPA dollars or anything else, that's gotta be our first priority. You guys have seen our shop office up there. We don't have space for social distancing. We've been adding staff. With the increase in park usage and just the demand on our parks and on our maintenance team, we've got to get a better facility for them. And so that's top on the priority. So we did this a couple different ways. We
Hey,
got,
Chris,
yeah.
just a quickie. Hey, is that new facility adding on?
No, it would, so what we would do is, there's
Oh,
that
no, that's
pole barn.
moving to the,
We'd replace that green, that old 1960s, 70s pole barn. We tear it down and put a new facility right there. This would be a new shop, basically.
okay, I confused, I thought you were talking about is the shop the only thing that you were talking about replacing because of COVID? I thought the office space was.
So, yeah, we do, long-term vision, have a plan to build a new park office / education center up there at the park. That's a ways out.
Okay.
So I mean, if you guys wanted to throw a bunch of money at that, we would do it, but honestly, I don't wanna do that
Please continue.
prior to all the rest of this stuff, so. In the short term, me and the office manager, when our park ranger or our operations supervisor retires in 2 years, 2023, we're gonna move our office up to his house, and we're gonna make his house the administration office. And at least that'll get admin and parks consolidated into that one park, and then we would build that new park office education center, we'll move the education team there, and then the entire department will get there. But, baby steps. So this is just the maintenance shop for the conservation maintenance staff. This is there at Big Hollow. It would replace the pole barn that is currently there, that I keep waiting for a big wind to come along and blow down. I looked at numbers a couple different ways. We got the numbers from the Danville Fire Station. It's designed very similarly to what we're looking at building, where you've got shop area, workspace in the back, and then an office area in the front. It's just what we would build would not be that big. But we got their numbers, and then we looked at how they bid their project out. It was actually kind of neat the way they did that, is they broke it down into several options that bidders could bid on. And so you could bid on all these options, do the whole project, or you could build on just the building itself. You could bid on the electrical, the HVAC, and they broke that out, and they did bids each way. And I kind of liked how they did that. And then I took their numbers and I basically scaled it. I took their square footage and scaled it down to ours, knowing that it's not a one-for-one, because HVAC and electric pretty much is what it is when you're outfitting an office. Come up with the number, and then I also got an estimate for a proposal from Kelowna Post and Frame. I had originally gone out to several GCs around the area. Had one of them tell me, if they were going to bid this, they would simply go to the Kelowna Post and Frame and ask them to do it. And so I got a quote from them. That was how I came up with that $350,000 number. That's basically contracting out the building of the building. That would be us, or using some local forces to tear down the old building and prep the site. And so fairly confident in that number there. As we get into some of these other numbers, my confidence level is kind of high and low, and we'll talk about those as we go. But the first two items on here, that and then the broadband expansion to Starscape Nature Center, these are operational things that absolutely have to happen at some point, whether it's ARPA funds or whether it's something else. With this shop office, or with this shop facility, we could theoretically break that down into, so we know, the guidance in the ARPA guidance, says it can be used for, says explicitly it can be used for infrastructure, like sewer and water infrastructure. So what we could do, if the county wasn't comfortable with spending the dollars for the entire facility, we could break out the costs of like the infrastructure for getting the sewer and water put to the site and running to the building. Or we could break out just the office part of it, the staff office part of it, because, that takes care of the distancing and the spacing that we would need to alleviate the tightness that we have in our current one, and so that would kind of be pandemic related. And then break that square footage out and the cost of that particular aspect of this from the maintenance shop aspect part of it, and then just fund that part because, pretty easy to justify that with the ARPA dollars, and then, we use some of our own dollars to get it up to the rest of it. So we could break that out and scale that however we needed to, if that's what we thought we needed.
To get it, and I don't know, unless it specifically calls some of this stuff out, everything has to look like it's pandemic related. Because the public health facility will be focused on what the pandemic, the effect that had on the public health facility. So just pure information, I'm not saying any of this applies or doesn't apply.
Right, exactly. And so that's why I was thinking, maybe we could just break out components of it that we could justify are directly pandemic related.
Is this list in order of priority?
Yes.
Okay.
For the most part. And then number two is broadband expansion to Starscape. We've talked about that in the past. So I went back and I pulled, IT has it set up where they ping our connection to Starscape every 60 seconds. And so when we lose our connection, I get an email, and then I've got that set up where it just automatically goes to a folder, so I don't see those all the time. So I open that folder up, and it looks like we average about twice a week, we lose our connection for some amount of time, and then we get it back. And then when we do have the connection, it's fairly slow, and it's just a DSL connection, it's grossly unreliable. And so Colin had originally, this was what, last year, the year before last.
At least a couple years ago,
had gotten some estimates from some local service providers on what that would cost. That was anywhere from 25 to 50,000. But they even said at the time that would be different if they happen to be doing a project in the area where they're running fiber to that area. So with all this broadband expansion that's going to be happening all over the place, not real confident in these numbers, but that could possibly tie into that, and that's certainly something I would want to see.
I think that would be the only thing that would bring ARPA into that, because if they divide that up into what they call census tracts.
Right.
And I'm not exactly sure that is, but there's a whole pile of them in the county, and everywhere, and then they'll say, this census tract, has connectivity, this one doesn't, and, but, yeah.
On a side note, MTC is doing an expansion of their fiber up in that area, but they're deadheading it down at the bottom, towards the bottom of Golf Course Road, and they're also over towards Gear. So you're kind of stuck in between, but you might want to touch base with them to see if there's any flexibility. We got a huge permit for them. They're gonna start work almost immediately.
Yeah.
So just something to mention.
Ex-Park Ranger lives on Golf Course Road, and he said that he's getting a connection from them, so, maybe that's something we can reach out to and see if we can maybe tie into that project, or.
I don't have any
whether
idea.
it's
I just
ARPA, or
mentioned it.
the state's throwing a bunch of money towards broadband too.
That's why they're,
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've talked to them. The last I talked to them, they didn't want to cross that bridge there. What's that bridge?
Oh, MTC Minneapolis Telecom.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I
they're crossing, they're
Have they crossed it?
They're crossing the bridge, they're crossing all the bridges, but it's everywhere.
It's been a long.
They're crossing the
Yeah.
bridge?
Yeah, they're
I thought
crossing, I'm
that
not
was
sure
a-
which bridge we're talking about, they're
No
crossing
go.
it.
The one right by,
They're crossing
Starscape.
Yeah, by Starscape.
Well, they're crossing the bridge over by 61, and they're crossing the bridge down 99. My guess is that they've crossed that one too.
So much for the gentleman's agreement.
But they're not, none of their lines currently get that close to Starscape, but they're in the area. I know they've got a priority project, it's all because of the funding, I'm sure, because they have a deadline, they had started right away, and they got a deadline in December, so just wanted to mention it.
So then, next one there is campground expansion at Big Hollow. As you know, our campground numbers, our visitation numbers are just, we're literally maxed out. And so we've got a lot of demand for additional campsites. This ties into our Big Hollow master plan. So that'd be the next one on there, adding about 15 RV sites. They're kind of next to the campground there, just to the west. And to get these numbers, what I did is I went back and I pulled the numbers from when we built out Big Hollow and what it is now. We did all that infrastructure work. And then I pulled out the numbers that applied to this, and basically just, I took it and I divided it by the number of sites, and so I got like a per site number. This isn't perfectly accurate, you know, because it kind of depends on how the lines will have to lay and everything, but I needed some sort of number to scale off of. And then I added an inflationary amount, and we did that work back in 2017. So I added 3% per year up through 2019, and then for 2021 and 22, I added 6%, because just the way things have gone. I would like to believe that that's fairly conservative, and that, you know, adding 36% since 2017 is, you know, gonna inflate my numbers significantly, but, you know, as we've seen, numbers are what they are. I would much rather overestimate these. You know, as you've seen in proposals for me in the past, I like to overestimate expenses and underestimate income, so, you know, so that, if anything, that should be overinflated. But, so that's that, and that's, you know, that's directly addressing increase in park demand. Then the next one there is, number 4 is infrastructure expansion of Big Hollow. So this would directly tie to the infrastructure component of the ARPA dollars. What we could do here is use those dollars to run some sewer and water infrastructure around the park for the things that we know we're gonna be doing in the future. So like adding the cabins, getting water down to the beach for rinse showers and water stations. And so, you know, getting that infrastructure put in the ground using these dollars, and then I'll use, you know, grant and investment dollars and donation dollars to build the cabins themselves later on, because I wasn't confident that I could in any way justify building cabins with ARPA dollars. I couldn't really see how that was pandemic related, unless we said, you know, somebody needs to quarantine, we'll put them up in the cabin at $200 a day, but I didn't really.
Nice try, Chris.
Right, yeah, I didn't really see that fitting. But if we could get the infrastructure put in place, you know, so that we can do this in the future, you know, that we know ties in. And then expanding broadband in the park, right now what we're doing is we are doing a point-to-point wireless deal where we beam from our shop to a series of poles in the campground. It's been a little less than reliable. I had gotten a quote from Minneapolis Telephone probably back, I think it was 2017, for running fiber right into the campground and then having a wireless point right there that kind of blanketed the park.
And you would get it throughout the entire park?
Well, I was just gonna
Pretty
focus on the
close to?
campground.
Oh, okay, it's just gonna be in the campground area?
Yeah. I guess putting it down to the beach would be, I think people would appreciate that, but I don't
Well, the
know that
campground
necessarily
area,
would
that's-
blanket the whole park, but really the campground's really the one where it's.
I was just wondering, what about when, if down the road that we get to a position to where you can expand it, how's that going to, how's that process?
So we're expand the campground?
Well, you know, I know that down the road you'd like to get some different cabins and that sort of thing. I mean, obviously you want the internet to run to the cabins as well, just like you do to the.
Yeah, and so if I got it to the campground, when we did the cabins, we could run right from there to the cabins, because they're gonna be right below the campground. And so we could tie that in. Those, I would see having a wired connection, and so this would be great to get that wired connection right to there, and then we'd have that centralized hub where we could pull off of, or, you know, even do wireless down to there with the wireless access point, because you'd have line of sight pretty easy.
I just think that's a good one on your list, though. But anyway, go ahead.
Yep. And so I took that quote and just added an inflationary factor to it, and so that's where that 11.8 comes from, and that's to get fiber to the campground there. Next one there is improvements at Fourth Pumping Station, and this is something we've talked about. This is part of our department strategic plan. This would be, you know, expanding the campground due to demand. Obviously, we're overwhelmed in Big Hollow. There's a lot of demand for for campsites, we have a lot of people that are, you know, literally working in their campers, and all that kind of stuff. So this would basically be the full expansion of that park. And again, we could carve out components of this, we could phase this down. But again, to get these numbers, I took the Big Hollow numbers from 2017. So I took that per site number, multiplied it by the number of sites we have for the pumping station, and then did the inflationary factor as well. And then had to make a little bit of a judgment call because we're gonna have to add a new septic system there. That one would be very, very different from the one we have at Big Hollow. Big Hollow uses an above ground mound system. It's got a force main that feeds it, and so I couldn't really use those numbers. So I kind of had to guess a little bit on the septic system, but I tried to air high again. Again, the electric, that was using numbers that we had used at Big Hollow, adding the inflationary factor. The shower house, same thing. The shower house we did at Big Hollow, added the inflationary factor. And then the rock for servicing the sites, that's just pretty much what I know rock costs to buy and haul. And then the wireless internet, that was assuming that there's fiber already run down there, and I don't know that there is, and so I'm not sure if that's even feasible or not. But I use that figuring that if they have run down that road, it's gonna be a pretty short jaunt that they're gonna have to come off that to put in, you know, a wireless access point right there in the campground. So I just kind of guessed. If I'm at 11.8, because I gotta put a bunch of wire in the ground in Big Hollow, I figured 8,000 there for the conversation. And again, I have no idea if that's feasible. And then from here on, we're kind of getting into some of the nice to haves, but may or may not fit the ARPA dollars. But if you don't put it into a plan, then you're not gonna do it. So accessibility improvements throughout our parks is a high priority component for us, both in our Big Hollow master plan and just for overall park improvement plans that we have going forward. And, you know, we're looking at it more and more as park use has skyrocketed and we see so many people out in our parks. We know that, you know, some of the most vulnerable populations, so the, you know, the aged, you know, those higher up in age, you know, those with some sort of underlying health condition, they have a hard time accessing some of the features of our parks, especially in places like Big Hollow where the sides are, you know, where it's steep, where we don't have solid surfacing and things like that. And so some of these accessibility improvements take that into account and makes these parks accessible to those that would otherwise have a hard time doing it. These are the ones most vulnerable to a pandemic as well.
Ask you one question. If this here is in a list of priority, why is that down to number 6?
Because I wasn't sure if it fit the ARPA dollars. I prioritized this based on how I thought it would fit the ARPA dollars, and I'm not sure that sidewalks and accessibility improvements do, because one of those, you know, guidelines in the ARPA guidelines that I've read, it specifically says broadband, it specifically says sewer and water infrastructure. It doesn't specifically say, you know, like sidewalk and surfacing. I've read some legal opinions where they think, you know, really any expansion of park facilities does fit because of the massive increase in demand due to the pandemic, but I'm just not sure. This would be, you know, probably up there priority number 3 if I know that fits with the ARPA dollars, or if you guys felt that it fit with the ARPA dollars, I would certainly move that up the list. I just wasn't sure, because I've read where, you know, like certainly doing, you know, like roads or expansion, things like that doesn't fit. And so I wasn't sure if sidewalks and, you know, accessibility things did. I would certainly like to think so, because that's directly pandemic related and you know, folks that are most vulnerable, you know, to the pandemic. This helps them access the park features, but I didn't want to make that leap, and so.
Well, this park's been, how long has that park been there? Since 19 what?
The original land purchase was 1966
Yeah, that's when it's
or so,
now,
yeah.
since it's been upgraded and everything.
As it exists now, 2017 was when we did that little final build out of the
Yeah.
campground and stuff. The lake was built was finished in 2008, and then we did the first campsite work in 2010 or 11, I think.
Here, okay, let's take 2010 or 11. This is 11 years that people that are handicapped in wheelchairs, on crutches and that, still can't get down to the beach. That is unbelievable. That should have been #1 priority, building that park.
That should have been built right into the
I
initial
have
design, yeah.
people still talking to me about this. Why don't you get this handicapped so we can go out and enjoy that? It's,
Yeah, so we go,
it's just a thorn in my rear end when I think about it.
yeah.
Does the ARPA funds address ADA, meaning,
I don't think so,
okay,
but
it's,
again.
there's so many
it's-
nooks and crannies in it,
Well,
so,
and
Right.
they're guidelines.
yeah.
And,
I mean, there's been so many other dollars spent out there that we could have been doing this.
So that, like, so the beach one, so I got that asterisk, we put that grant in. Tomorrow evening, I'm meeting with this accessibility committee, so we're gonna come up with a good list of projects to do. But that beach one that you say, I'm confident that's happening next year regardless. Whether we put ARPA dollars to it or not, the dollars are gonna be there to make that happen. Same thing with the boat ramp. That thing's a nightmare, as steep as it is, and so we've got plans for improving that. That's on here. And so, so all of those numbers on there, that's a sum total of, if you want to total that up, I didn't do it, $448,035 is the total of all those numbers in number 6 there.
What was it?
448,035. But yeah, I wasn't sure whether the rescue plan funds fit with, ADA improvements or not. So, if we determine that they do, yeah, I want that one moved up, for sure. And then we're getting into some stretch here. Water quality improvements, as you know, we've got some water quality issues up in Big Hollow. And this came directly from one of those ISAC or NACO webinars, was that these dollars can be used for like stormwater and water quality stuff. I think they said explicitly on one of those webinars that you could use to like do grant programs or cost share programs for improving septic systems. And so I estimate we have about 30 residences, that's just looking at the aerial photograph and counting what looks like residences, within the Big Hollow watershed. So let's say half of them need upgraded, they probably more than that, but, and assuming that a septic system costs about $10,000 to do for a single residence, if we did a 50% cost share at $5,000 times 15 system, that'd be 45 grand. That'd go a long way to improving some septic systems in the watershed. You could go even bigger than that, do a county-wide deal. It's kind of one of those things, if that's something we thought was a good expenditure of those dollars. I don't know really if that's something that ought to be priority over anything else in this list or anything else that other departments are gonna bring, or this housing thing or anything like that. But
Off the subject, I guess it isn't off the subject. The algae bloom problem you've got out there, and you talk about the watershed, would this be a contributing factor to something like that, Gus, or just curious?
yeah, so phosphorus is the nutrient problem that we have in that lake, and so often that comes from bad septic systems, manure, things like that. It's less, well, there's phosphorus in fertilizer as well. Generally, if it's a major fertilizer issue, it's a nitrogen problem. Ours is a phosphorus problem. And
So it isn't necessarily runoff from the fertilizer, some of these other things that are contributing to that more.
Well, certainly the ag runoff is the biggest contributor. I think the preliminary numbers that I've seen from the watershed plan that they're still assembling, that was gonna be about 74% of it. They didn't have exact numbers, but they thought septic systems was gonna be single-digit percentages of the contributing factor to that.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, it's not nothing.
No, but I mean, it does contribute to it, Doug,
Yes,
just
it does.
curious about that.
This is the one I've been talking about lately. I think this is a ticking time bomb out there. I think if Big Hollow gets a reputation for being nothing but a carpet of water grass, people are gonna stop coming to it. Popularity is going to decline. Campers are gonna find other places with cleaner water. So I think it's a very important issue we're gonna have to address.
Incidentally, as long as we veered off here.
Yeah.
You talked about, you thought you'd get a grant for that watershed issue or the issue like that, and hopefully maybe be able to hire somebody to be in charge of that. Is that still a possibility?
Yeah, so, right now, our engineer, consultant that we hired is in the process of finishing the watershed plan. That's the first step to getting us to qualify for those grants. And so that plan will be done this year, and then by the end of the year, it's gonna be sent to the EPA for approval, because it's gotta go through the whole approval process, because there's a criteria by which this has to be written. Once we have that approval, then we qualify for what they call 319 funds, which is through the Clean Water Act. It's federal dollars. It's a lot of the same money that GEOD used to hire their watershed coordinator and do a lot of the work they did out there. So we're cautiously optimistic that by middle of 2022, we're gonna start seeing some of those opportunities start to flow our way.
Thank you.
At least be able to apply for
I
it.
apologize to everybody for chasing off somewhere else, but
Oh, yeah.
back to ARP.
Yeah, and so, on that note, the county could look at putting some dollars, towards, watershed improvements. I know that generally, these ARP dollars won't work for like federal match. So if we get federal funding through this 319 program, we're gonna go matching with the ARP dollars. But there are potentially some practices that would kind of fall outside of what those federal dollars might be able to fund. And so, we would look at put some dollars towards that. I don't know what that looks like yet. So, because like I said, we don't have that watershed plan done yet. But if the county wanted to focus some of these dollars on water quality, by the end of this year, we should have a pretty good idea of where those might be well utilized. And then number 8 there, this one's kind of reaching. But it is part of, I went through our strategic plan and tried to find places where we might be able to move that thing forward. We've talked about using some of these FEMA buyout areas for things, and we talked about developing some campsites, maybe possibly for some long-term leases. In Fort Dodge, they've just done a thing where they've built an area in one of their parks, it's at their gypsum OHV park, their off-road vehicle park, where they put in mini houses, but they were built by the construction trades program at the prison. And so the prison built these houses, they took them, they put them in the park, and then they rent them out like cabins. I know the FEMA deed restrictions that we have on these FEMA buyout areas, we can't put anything permanent there. But many houses, theoretically, you could back up to, hook up, put on a trailer and pull out of there where we'd have a big flood, so that wouldn't be permanent. I would need a legal opinion from somebody tied to the feds that could tell us that that's a possibility. But I do know we have gotten legal opinion that we can certainly build campsites there. So that's something we're looking at doing, expanding our ability to offer camping and outdoor recreation. That's certainly close to town, it's close to the Flood River Trail access on the city's side. It's something that we can certainly look at doing. And like that one, the campground expansions, all of those have return on investment. And, and I like that, being able to deploy some of these dollars, and then that's gonna generate revenue, to move our operations forward. Creating more campsites and stuff like that, there's a revenue generation factor to those anyway. Not so much with a park, with a new shop, or broadband, but, campsite expansion certainly does, so, that's not the thing. If you want a total number, with the exception of number 8, because I have no idea what numbers would be, I think I added it all up and it's 1.96 million. If I got my calculations correct. So that's everything through number 7. That I have numbers for.
Anything either of your board members would like to add.
Well, just to reiterate the first priority on here, you know, there's now a master plan for the park system and 5 years out, but a lot of that, you can have all these grand plans, but if your staff is kind of back in the 1950s in terms of facilities, it makes it difficult. You know, you can't really deploy them correctly, you can't make the best use of their time, and I think this is kind of the linchpin to getting the rest of the master plan implemented. So there's a reason it's number one.
And I could fundraise and grant write for, you know, cabins and campsites and park expansion. It's almost impossible to fundraise and grant write for a maintenance shop. You know, it's just, those opportunities aren't there. You know, no one wants to throw money at that. But as you know, that's a critical component of a department's operation. So, you know, we can pour some of these dollars to make that happen. That, like you said, is really the linchpin to making a lot of other things happen. So, and I don't expect a decision now. I know that the public health building is priority number one, as it should be. You know, and so once you have those numbers figured out, I have the luxury of you know, none of this has to happen right away. I don't have any grant deadlines that, I'm not really planning on using any ARPA dollars as match for any of this stuff. I'm gonna keep moving forward with this.
And I don't think you can use ARPA dollars as match, you mentioned that, I don't have.
Yeah, I think I probably could for state, but certainly not any of these federal ones.
No, not for any federal ones, and, I think you're probably right there, I'd have to read that damn thing again.
And it's, you know, and it's kind of one of those where even if you're not necessarily using the dollar numbers as match, it ties into an overall project. So if I write a grant and say, you know, hey, the county is, you know, building, is paying to build, you know, this component and this component of the master plan, I'm asking for these grant dollars to do this component, and then all of this gets done. You know, grant reviewers really like that. They want to bet on winners. They want to see, they want to be part of a bigger project. You know, they want to see their dollars leveraged, even if it isn't dollar for dollar. They want to be part of something bigger that's happening. And so, you know, like if the you know, say we use ARP dollars for the expansion of the campground, and then I use that saying, all right, we're building out this campground, now, you know, donor or grant entity, give me dollars to build these cabins, and then the park expansion, you know, even though they're separate projects, it's in the same park, it all ties together. And so, that can work that way too. That's all I work.
Thank God that you got people that donate and grants out there to help tax dollars, taxpayers. If you took something like Colchester Campground, for instance, you took that $240,000, upgrade that, at $25 a night. It'll take you 28 years to recover your money on that,
Payback.
$25 a night.
Yeah, for sure.
So your return on investment wouldn't be too good on that.
That's why you don't see a lot of private campgrounds in places like Southeast Iowa. You see them in Breckenridge, Colorado. And they charge how much? $200 a night?
200 was that one.
We need some vendor around there, you know, that goes out these campsites and that, like them people that go out with their coffee and what they have down at the beach, you know, and
Right.
sell hot dogs and that.
Yeah.
Get a % off of that. Bob, he could buy one of them wagons, go out there, give him something to do in his retirement.
Next week. We even have a system in place. I wish we could try and do that. But,
It's going down.
yeah. And so, and the to your point, Jim, what we have going for us is there's so much enthusiasm for our parks and our operations because we have that local connection. You know, I think that's county conservation's biggest advantage over, say, state parks is that they know who we are. And, you know, when they see the county, you know, put up a loan to the conservation department because they want to see this happen, they see that investment in what we're doing and investment in the future of the county, and they want to be part of that. And, you know, when I go out and talk to people and they see how far Big Hollow has come, you know, they want it. They want to be part of this and they want to invest in it, and that's what makes it happen. So when we have
the elected leadership saying, yes, we're gonna move this thing forward, we're gonna move this department forward, that makes it real easy for people out in this community to say, absolutely, I'll be part of it too.
Well, it's a beautiful place out there, I'll tell you that. You got a lot of nice facilities.
And, you know, to the point that they were making earlier, that contributes to, you know, the quality of life in this community for the people that are already here. And people do look at that when they're looking at places to relocate to. I mean, I've had, you know, people from Case say that when they're bringing in somebody new, they take them out and they show them the parks, they show them the trail system. And, you know, that's what people are asking about. And if you look at the places in Iowa where people are flocking to, yeah, they're the bigger population centers, but they're also the biggest investment in, you know, outdoor recreation amenities. And so, you know, there's a chicken or egg thing there as well, but, you know, that's certainly my demographic and younger, that's the type of thing that they're looking for. So this all feeds into that, it's all connected.
Bob, you've been pretty quiet back there.
Thinking.
My sister-in-law wants to put a chin-up bar every 50 yards on that trail.
Guy could relax and pull, yeah. Maybe those days.
Well, you know what Jimmy's gonna tell you? You already heard his line. Well, we've gotta take care of the, how'd you put that, Jimmy?
We're gonna take care of the disabled people, the handicapped people.
Health Department. Oh, I mean your other state.
When you get that ramp built, see, I'm gonna borrow somebody's wheelchair and see how far I can land it.
Right? Absolutely, yeah, probably make it out of the water. Yeah. So no, we've got, I'm really looking forward to meeting with this committee tomorrow and, you know, getting some of their ideas and going with that. I think that's really gonna help us out. I've got some ideas floating around the back of my mind on, you know, how to make things more accessible and things like that. I really think, we're writing some grants right now. There are a lot of grants come due in the fall and early spring. By spring of next year, we're gonna have been told that we've gotten some grants. And then through the winter, I'm working right now on building the capital campaign committee for Big Hollow. We're gonna do kind of the silent phase right now and get some of those dollars coming in quietly, but then in spring, you know, we're gonna be able to come out and say, we're putting sidewalks on the beach, we're rebuilding this boat ramp, we've got this grant, this grant, this grant, you know, here's the overall picture of the park, and then that's when we're really going live and we're really gonna hit the ground running, assuming the pandemic doesn't crash the economy again, and that's when we're really gonna start generating that enthusiasm. And if there were going to be some ARPA dollars flow towards this stuff, that would be the greatest time to come out and say, the county's gonna put up this many dollars to go towards this particular component of this project, because then that really starts spinning that flywheel and showing that momentum. And so, you know, as we get figured out with the health department, we find out how many dollars are gonna be left, you know, I think that all kind of ties together. 2022 is gonna be a big, big year for parks in this county.
I'm gonna leave. I'm already about to be late for I've gotta make this meeting due to only quarterly, and I missed the last one because we were here all day. But I just wanna say this, I'm in the same spot where Jimmy said earlier to a different group that, you know what's priority on the list, so we wanna do the big number, but that's not gonna take all that money, and afterwards, I'm open. I already saw some, at least, one item, I think 2 items on your list that I thought was a given. I didn't have any issue with the rest of it, you know, we'll just have to see and prioritize, obviously, as the county sees the need, but.
And that's why I want to get a bunch of numbers, you know, in front of you, and you know, we can decide this fits, this doesn't, this fits, and we'll just kind of.
Exactly what we want, so we get an idea what costs and where, what's available, what it costs, compare and contrast.
I take that back what I said. What I said was, I want you guys to have all the stuff on the list. But I'm gonna go with whatever Tom and Jimmy say, so,
What time is that meeting tomorrow? Is it
3 o'clock.
Huh?
3 o'clock.
I can't get us up.
Well, I think we're gonna be there till 5, or even later, even if
Like the kids over.
Huh?
Yeah,
Kids over.
Yeah, bring along.
Can I bring a bunch?
You're gonna have
Let's turn loose on the playground, we'll do our thing.
Gonna get about 30 hot dogs?
Yeah.
There you go.
Maybe Make it 32, and I'll need 2 of them.
There we go.
Field trip.
Bob's out.
Talk about help. See,
Yes,
there's
everyone
another
here
thing,
before.
but this community can't get help, they cannot get anybody to drive buses.
I think there's one state's bringing in National Guard to drive.
Yeah, I seen that.
Wow.
And here we got, we just can't get any.
Well, the thing is you gotta find somebody with the right temperament to deal with a busload of kids.
Or a weapon.
It's not that they don't wanna drive, it's they don't wanna.
Yeah.
Apparently.
With spare
They don't
magazines.
want, they don't want the responsibility because they don't want to lose their temper.
Okay,
Nope.
I don't think
I'm not
we
good with
appreciate your
things.
comment, Julie, Bob, and, bringing this to us, and
Yeah.
dealing with our questions, so, you all have a nice day.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more work session.
Let me go find Natalie, see if she's available.
Okay.
Natalie's,
Oh, she's hiding behind, I can
She's
see
been
you over
sitting there
there.
for 2 hours. She almost found herself on the partnership housing. I haven't given up on volunteering you yet.
When he said that, you did kind of perk up a little.
Oh, yeah, she was paying
I didn't know
attention.
that was part of my duties.
You wanna go
Well,
I have the boarding
if
up
you'd
to
been a
me,
contract
that's
employee, we'd probably just assign you. And since you're official, I'm not sure that we can do that. Yeah, that's a thought.
You would have a say.
Are you ready
You
for the
ready?
last one?
Yeah, okay, we have a work session with the recorder and auditor regarding the use of ARPA funds for digitization of records in the auditor and recorder's office. We talked about this a little bit, so who wants to speak, you or Natalie, or who?
Alls I've done is I've given you the latest update because we added some, the old record survey books to our list, and I think we're just under 35,000 now, 35,000, to have all of the board minutes books, all of our transfer books, and the original county survey records.
And Natalie, you're somewhere around 51,000 if you add those, is that right?
Yep.
You had what,
That's
300 books, or is that all 300 books, or?
Well, if I go with this advantage preservation, which is what I am wanting to do, just because it will upload into Eagle Recorder, where we can email those documents out to the people that can't come into the office. Plus, at some point, we will send those out to Iowa Land Records, which is a public free site that anybody can go to and get those,
which is awesome, by the way.
which we don't maintain. So I like the idea of having them already in our system. And plus, cost-wise, it was a lot cheaper than using,
And what we have is normally just for research, so that they can figure out what book and page and stuff that they need,
And-
so.
And this, I think a lot of counties are doing this with the, with the justification that people don't have to come into the courthouse to look at those records. They can look at them online.
Now Natalie, can I ask you another question? Because we were talking about doing the grantor-grantee books. Would you rather have those on a research part? Because those wouldn't dump into land records.
no, they went,
Because just like grantor and grantee, because a lot of our old original books didn't have book and pages in it. So they find out that they find out who bought it, and then they end up going down to your end to look up the grantor and the grantor books about that date range, so that they can figure out what the book and page is for the deed.
right, but in your transfer books, most of the time, don't you list a deed book and page where it's located?
Most of them do, it's all the older ones that don't. Because I can't remember when they started putting, God, I'd have to go back and look and see when they actually, because when they originally started those books, they didn't always put book and page. It was just basically who bought it, who they bought it from, and when the instrument was recorded or filed, and it did not have any book and page in it. So that's kind of the concept, the old original concept when the county was first established for land records, is then they would go down to the recorder's office because they kept their grantor-grantee books to actually look up to find out what deed book and page that document is. So it's more of a research and it's not the actual document. Because once they get that deed book and page, then they would go to you and say, hey, I need this deed book and page.
Right, which, yeah, that, you're correct, that will not go out to Iowa Land Records, the index books, but the document or the image itself that they need would go.
So I'm thinking, okay, if I do all mine through ArcaSearch, which it's an off-site thing that they do, and it's mainly for research to find these, not recorded documents, but just like the board minutes for if there's a road that was vacated or something like that, or the transfer books, which shows who bought it and who sold it, and what the date was and everything. And almost the grantor grantee books kind of fall into that, because that's part of that research too. It's not the actual document, it's just part of the research process. So I'm wondering if we should have those through the ArcaSearch so that you have all the actual documents in yours to land
The
records.
deeds or the index?
The grantor grantee books, the index.
I mean, yeah, I guess if the money's there to do it, I just know the quote that I was given by them,
It's about 10 times as high as
it's
the,
outrageous, I mean, it's.
I know. Cause
So
how
I
many,
don't know what it would cost to
how
do
many,
those.
how many grantor grantee books do you have? Was there 30 of them? Or was there 70 of them?
Probably closer to 70.
So that, I mean, I just see that as all part of that research process.
Which, yes, it would be very beneficial to have those out there. I'd definitely rather have the document, the image itself of the deed, if we had to choose.
As far as cutting
But if we
down
can throw
on
that in
in-office stuff, current day, the office, the image out on Iowa, and being available to Iowa Land Records is probably the most useful currently. But as far as the research, you're right, it could tie together.
Yeah, cause if anybody's doing an abstract and they
But-
go back to,
I mean, these documents, these deeds will be indexed, now that I'm thinking, so you still would be able to search by the grantor grantee. So if you bought a house in 1940, and that deed has been digitized and scanned in, we would index that grantor grantee.
according to that subdivision, block and lot and the legal description.
At some point, it'll take us time to go back and do the indexing of the legal descriptions, but it will be indexed by the book and page, and then we will go in and do the names. That part will take time.
How much we looking at to do what? Ballpark figure what Terry said then.
I don't know, cause he didn't break it down by book, but for the AcroSearch that she's talking with, for them to do, like the 300 deed books, the 70 grantor grantee books,
And I think we also talked about redoing the plat
12
books.
plat books, but plus, I mean, they're,
Quite a bit in our office.
I mean, yes, there was lots in mine, which, I mean, we could break it down, but I prefer to have them an Eagle recorder that we're using now, that we can email those documents to anybody that requests those. There's 2 abstract companies that have access to the Eagle recorder from their offices that pay a annual fee, so they will be able to search for those records also.
Colin.
I got a question. Do they give you any kind of estimation on how much data all those images and records would use or eat up? And same question to you. Do they have any estimation on how much, digitizing that?
It's not actually stored on the county, it's going to their site that they host.
Well, hers is hosted through Eagle Recorder, correct?
Mine-
Yeah,
yes,
hers
no.
would be, her documents, the recorded documents would be through her system, but mine, the books, would not be.
It's not on the county at all?
They will give us, like CDs and stuff like that of the images so that we have our own copies if we need them, but they host that off-site.
Okay,
I do not know.
okay.
Is there an annual fee? I'm sorry,
Yes.
Tom, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yes, there is an annual fee, it's about,
A lot of this conversation is still over my head, I've never done any
Yeah.
real estate research.
I'm just gonna
Brutally
say,
honest.
from a guy that uses all their offices, not the treasurer, I guess, but as much, but I do pay fees down there. But, the records that are between the basement and up here and everything that they're talking about are, well, we had a flood in the basement. I mean, we're one thing away from losing 100 to 150 years of history in this county. And I'm dead serious about that. Now, you might go another 100 years and never have that event. But that is the truth. And if you go to those old books that are the true history of this county, back to when the federal government gives the land to the state becomes a state, then the ground starts being sold or given, actually, and from that very beginning on, and roads come shortly thereafter, which is obviously a big deal to me. It truly is. I don't know how it fits in the overall picture, but this is one of those things where I would guess it would be very hard to fit into an average budget, depending on what kind of money you're talking, but in the big picture, having that kind of a digital, not getting rid of the books you have, but that kind of a digital backup of that history is good stuff, because once that's gone, if it's ever gone, you don't get it back.
Some counties have lost theirs too. I think like Marshall County was one of those where that tornado rolled through. and
That's true.
knocked out that
Do these
courthouse.
proposals that we're discussing, do they address all that?
I gotta defer, I have not seen the proposals, I'm sticking my nose into something I haven't been a part of, but they know I support the concept.
What's new?
Well, I support the concept.
I use it, so I'm gonna be supportive of it.
so maybe it's just figuring out the concept, because like, I agree with you, all of the recorded documents, the deeds and the plats need to be in Iowa land records, so that people can get to those, but I see the grantor grantee books as more of a research, just like mine is a research with the transfer books and the board minutes, because people look at that trying to figure out, okay, when did they get that? What document do I need to get? Because they won't be able to get the recorded deed from that research. They have to go to you to get to that information.
I mean, the preservation of it is huge, which though isn't what the ARPA funds cover,
Yeah.
the preservation, but, I mean, that's just a bonus to be able to do this.
Yeah.
But these records will be online, or we can email them from the office if the public can't come in.
Well, and the
That's
public-
where the funds how we would use the funds is because the access of them going to Iowa land records or going to the websites, or us being able to send the documents if we're either working from home. But like Brian said, the preservation of having those, I mean, these deed books go back, I think, to 1837, and it's the only record
I think that's
there is
essential.
of it, so.
I think this is a great opportunity, and I think that's, we've been working, talking toward that a little bit at a time, so I think that's great. I guess, one question I'm gonna throw out here, and Janelle sat there, do you have records like that
We do have records down in our area.
that should be digitized?
Did you get all your microfiche ones years back? I know you're kind of working towards that, or maybe Brenda Buck was, the little microfiche.
No, I mean,
are they public records?
everything's public, yeah. Everything's public. So tax books downstairs go back years, I don't know, hundreds, you know. And that's been something that Pat Bean, that Brenda, that I would like to get down there and put those in order, and, yeah, it's.
Because it's amazing what people ask, because they do, they want to know, you know, well, a lot of things, they want to find out the property, because they want to know when the house was built. It's kind of like, well, we really don't have that, you'd have to check with the assessor for that, but people, I mean, even tax records, people are interested in what taxes did they pay.
And we can only go back as far as what Tyler has right now, so.
So, yeah, it's just amazing, you know, what the county has and what you can put out there as documents. It's like, we're the library for county documents.
Records, yeah.
That's what you're charged with, and that's part of your responsibility as elected officials.
I guess my question was, you and Rodney have sat here, and I appreciate that it's fascinating to listen to this.
Well, only parts.
Yeah, part of it. They all,
You're way too honest. Anyway, so I did not know if you guys had something that wasn't included in this that you think should be.
As far as the records part?
Or records or whatever, and we're talking, because when we first started talking about it, it was that base camp first said that they were gonna apply to digitize records.
Oh, yes.
Anyway, and they talked about the recorders in the auditor's office about digitizing those records, and that's been one of the things we thought was important, and we never discussed the treasurer's office, and quite honestly, I don't know what records you've got there, and I don't know what, you might have some concerns about that too, Rodney.
On the records part of it, I really don't know.
Okay.
I just think it was more looking at maybe rearranging or remodeling some of the treasures.
yeah,
Okay.
because Janelle asked, and I said, might as well come on up,
Okay.
because
Oh.
they have other ideas.
That, that's, and, I'll tell you what.
But that's not,
We probably, and that's, I think that's a good conversation. We probably can't, that's far enough removed from the digitization of the records. Talking about remodeling that, but we could set up a work session for that, and I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, and I don't know, that's what I was asking, we just got a bunch of file cabinets back there, if some of that could be digitized and maybe moved out. It would kind of affect that whole scenario if we're looking at doing something different there,
Okay.
you know, down the road. So I don't know, that's, when it comes to those records and those offices, that's all on them. I don't know much about them other than moving from one side to the other.
Rodney only
I-
knows when he gets the call.
I understand why you're here now, and I do understand, and we talked about it a little bit, so that's fine. So right now, we're just looking at and we'll have a work session on that exact issue. But right now, we're looking, so I guess my question between the auditor and the recorder is, you're talking about these grantee and grantor books. So I don't know what that is, and that's fine, there's fills into a library of a whole bunch of crap I don't know.
that's when you sell your property to
Yep.
Jim, you're the grantor, he's the grantee.
Yep. Uh-huh.
You sold it in 1934, but we don't know a deed book and page, so we can go look under broker in 1934 and find that deed.
I
Okay.
think you're
So-
talking about a
That's-
joint project. It sounds to me like Natalie's talking about one project that gets stuff into the software that could communicate with the Iowa Land Records. And maybe your project
Would be more
actually
research.
extends from your office into Natalie's office. And she would just, if she's willing and it was part of all the funding, and honestly, if this money were to come from ARPA or whatever it is, then it really doesn't matter if it's shared between two projects or not. You're just talking about two separate projects that accomplish similar
But,
goals.
And
but
it's-
Natalie's grant or grantee books could actually go on our research
Yeah.
site that we would have.
Electronically, you can store wherever.
Okay, and so, and it doesn't, because when we do this, well, we'll ask the attorneys whether it needs to be split up between the recorders, maybe it does, but it's the same rationalization, you know, justification is that this keeps people from having to come to the courthouse, they can go online and do that research, or if they need to look at something like that. So right now, you've got something for 35, and you've got something for 51, but there's a question about some other books, do we need to have a price on doing those, or is that something that's not necessary, or?
I mean, well, those are included in
Put them on Eagle
this
Recorder?
138, or in this quote of the 38,000.
Uh-huh.
So if we do it that way, then they're gonna be in two places, and when we're paying two fees for it, so we have to.
Now
determine.
does that other, who's the firm that you looked at?
Advantage Preservation.
Okay, so do they have a site similar to ARCA that, where you can, so it's just everything's dumped into Eagle Recorder?
Right.
Okay,
I don't think it's a big deal if you're hitting two things twice, if the end result is productive to the public in both locations. You're talking about two different softwares, talking about two different purposes, and you serve two different groups even though they're all the same people. So I really don't see a problem with with your project overlapping into books that you were already doing, because you're already paying to have, but you want them to be accessible to a different software, which is not realistic through yours. You want them because they tie into all the books you have, but that's a different software stored somewhere else through some other company. The overlap is not an inefficiency, it's making it a more thorough project from both directions. Unless it's a money issue, the fact that you're thinking that you're paying somebody twice is not, it's not an issue, because there's two different goals here.
I'm hearing that we need this, or should have it, to do it properly.
I feel like if the money's there, I think it's definitely a big deal.
If the money's there, then yes.
Quite honestly, both of those quotes are cheaper than I thought they would be. And I think they're less, it would be, obviously, we would like to know, can you go back to one of those companies and say, what would it cost for this? Or could the company you're getting a price for, could they go down there and look at?
I could probably, since he already gave her a quote for her whole office, I could probably ask him about the grantor grantee books, about putting those on mine.
Putting those on
And
yours?
see what that total cost is.
Why don't we do that? Because I tell you what,
Have access to them too then.
Yeah, and yeah, because ARCA is they would probably find a link to it on our website for real estate document research or real estate records. And on there, they would,
Is that
you
a
could have
big
all
part
of
of
that
yours, or
information
small
on there.
part,
You could
or-
have the transfer
The
books.
index part?
What the books we're talking about doing again, on twice, or?
Just the grantor grantee books.
No. I mean, it's like, it's only like 6,000
How many thousand?
out of 38.
Why don't you, you're already using, is it ARCA?
ARCA, that's who,
What you're
that's the
gonna-
only one
You
that
got a price from ARCA, but you're gonna use Advantage. So Advantage would do them and put them on Eagle Recorder, and then ARCA, while they were here or while they were there, they could include that in theirs. Why don't you see if you
they
can
would
get a price
scan
on that? Well, and I don't know, Jim, I guess one of the things I'd like to do with this is, this is something we're pretty sure we wanna do, and this isn't gonna interfere with public safety, just go ahead.
I wanted to do that 2 years ago. I voted down, remember?
Probably, they were doing it with our money then.
And I do wanna add though, we have, over the past few years, we have taken some of the microfilm and been able to print that and do it ourselves, but the quality that these companies, I mean, this is what they do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can't produce the quality, even if we used a scanner of some sort, of some of these records, so it's,
I guess.
I'm trying to sell it to you.
And-
Well, I'd be, well, I don't think you have to sell it to us, I don't think you have to sell it to Shane. What would be nice is once you get that other price, if we can come in, we can come in here and you can say it's gonna be X dollars. And, if it wasn't out of hand or something like that, we could say, yeah, we do that. That way the board could get that approved and you could get started. Cause I looked at both of those estimates and they say it's gonna take 6 months or a year before they even get started on that project. Isn't it something like that?
Yeah, I mean, these quotes are good just till the end of
Because
the year.
they're getting hit from all
Oh,
counties
yeah,
in
that's
Iowa.
the deal, everybody, so this way we can get it done, and then after they start, I think it takes 6 months or a year to get it done.
It can
So,
take a long time.
yeah, so anyway, so the sooner we could get started with that, and like you said, not wait till the end of the year, so that's kind of, so yeah, if we could get that, you guys figure out what, I would assume would be the cheapest way is to have your
And
guys,
then we-
since they're gonna be
yeah.
there, and have it added to your quote.
And I can contact Dave and ask him to take the grantor grantee books from yours and add it to my cost and see what he comes up with.
That'd be great.
And then
That
that
works
way
with you,
you've
Jim.
got yours from
I'm not gonna vote against you
your.
then.
Hey, I'm gonna thank you right now in front of all these people.
Yeah.
Thanks for voting me down, because now we're saving our tax money and somebody else takes it. Okay?
Well, let's do that.
And that doesn't cover all of our records, believe me, there's more, because Brian was
Yeah.
talking about
This
the
is
maps
only the
downstairs.
details. This
and-
doesn't cover the
Yeah,
hundreds of mortgage
Yeah.
books.
Oh, I've got
Maybe
thousands of plans,
when we get this
so.
health building built, maybe we can use that for storage over there. Because it's high enough up, it's not gonna flood.
But a lot of
It's not gonna
stuff,
flood.
a lot of stuff has to be
Nothing
on
will
site.
survive.
Still still have the people like me that like to go through the books.
Yeah, I know,
I mean, they
it's-
still have to be here for genealogy and searches or people that come in, so we can't get rid of them, but, I mean, some of the quality, I mean, those books from 1837, to try to read that,
Oh, yeah, that's a chore.
And
the
Dave,
longer
Dave
fading
has
and that too, so the
mentioned,
preservation part is what's.
yeah, and Dave from ARCA has stated that people that digitized their records probably 10 to 15 years ago are coming back and having them redo them because the digitization has improved so much and the clarity has improved so much. So he said, you know, some of them are redoing their records just because the cameras have improved over the years.
So I give you samples, Natalie, like if you send those in, they kind of give you an idea of what it looked like.
Yeah,
I remember
just
years
wanted
ago,
to
Lisa had did some samples or whatever, and there's some of those that she
Well,
struggled with.
part of this is with US Imaging, it's not all a project that we already did, so I do have those. This one, no,
I
I'm
know what
supposed
you're
to send
talking
you some
about.
samples from Lynn County, because Lynn
Yeah, they go
County
down
uses
all
them.
over your hand.
Oh, yeah.
And there's at least half a dozen county recorders that are gonna be using this
What-
advantage preservation.
Which, why don't you, if you could call and see how much, you wanted to know how much, storage?
Yeah, because like, different, like, I've looked at some of these things before with like Lisa and whoever else, but, different companies use different kind of resolution and, basically quality of when
Yeah.
they when they scan those in. So the file sizes can be vastly different on how much data that storage can be. And, I've seen some various quotes before and they range by a lot. You know, as a county, as a whole, within the last 5 years, we've been really ramping up the amount of data we've been consuming for each one of the offices, so.
Is, is that something you'd need to store in a cloud or a server?
Locally here, on our servers.
I mean, everything's going electronically and digitally and getting away
Yeah.
from the books, so.
And ever since that, was it a state mandate where they mandated all the state stuff be digitized years ago, so that, you know, ate up a lot more storage. We've just been really ramping up, which is fine, I'm just, you know, just trying to make sure that I'm
Prepare to have
prepared,
it.
yeah,
Just don't forget Colin in the whole process.
yeah.
He needs the room if you want to do it.
There you go, the old public health building just becomes a giant server building. One big server.
On that app research, like you say, they do have that annual fee.
Mhm. Yeah, it
So
depends on the
that
records.
can maybe be thrown in
Yeah.
to,
And just for my records, I think it was gonna be like $2,700
I
a
was
year.
just thinking
an
2,500,
annual fee.
that'd be an annual fee.
So, I mean, if I
And
add
yours
more
doesn't have
books
one.
to it,
mine would have been.
So far.
Not with this one, but with app research, it was like 4,500
Yeah, with the whole thing though,
a year,
yeah.
with
Yeah.
and that fee will probably change if I have her grantor
Yeah.
grantee books added to that, so.
Yeah.
And they would have been two different app research sites, we wouldn't have been combined at one, so we would have had.
Yours aren't being done off-site, yours are being taken off-site, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
What are yours being done? They being taken?
They asked for a location here at the courthouse, that we provide a location for them so that they can come in and set up and do everything here.
Really?
Just tell them there's room in the treasurer's office.
There is? You come show me where.
There's an office in the back corner that there's nobody in.
Oh, gee, thanks. I think there's more she's at it.
There's an office right there, no thought ever happened. Okay, so if you guys will check on that,
Okay.
that'd be great, and then, actually, we need to get an answer, maybe email us, and, we'll take a look at it, then in the next, week or two, maybe get that on the agenda so we can get started on that. We can at least get our names in line.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you all again. And
Thank you.
Rodney, why don't you and
And
Janelle talk, see when it'd be convenient for you guys?
Well, actually, I think we need to discuss probably